Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily with Andrew Hustler Paterson and Michael Remus.
All right, let's do this. Welcome to Winnipeg Sports Talk for another week. Andrew Paterson, Michael Remus, Connor Hrabchak will join us a little later on in the program. Great to have you all with us. Pretty nice day outside. And do we have lots to get to coming out of the weekend. A blockbuster trade in the NHL that did not involve Connor Hellebuyck, but it did involve the Florida Panthers. Brady Tkachuk going to South Florida to be with his brother, making Keith Tkachuk's Father's Day, and coming for a boatload of draft capital, 3 first-round picks and a second-rounder going to the Ottawa Senators. Speaking of Father's Day, I hope all you dads, especially mine, had a great Father's Day yesterday. Was a nice one for Wyndham Clark at the U.S. Open. He hung on and avoided a massive collapse in that final round. Of course, the World Cup is rolling, and it was an amazing week in the Canadian Football League as well. We'll have a new edition of CFL 110 tomorrow with Geoff Hamilton and myself. We'll break it all down tomorrow, but I'm sure we'll mention that later on. But it's draft week, everybody. This is going to be a very interesting few days in and around the National Hockey League, and that we've already seen things pick up with the news of the blockbuster yesterday with the 9th pick, the 25th pick, which was already acquired early in the week by the Panthers from Seattle for Mackie Saskevich. I always screw up his last name. Mackie S. So that leaves the question as to what's up with the Winnipeg Jets and Connor Hellebuyck, and do the Florida Panthers, now that they've traded all those picks, still have what might be get a deal done with Winnipeg? That remains to be seen. Although it was interesting, when we talked about kind of Dregs' media tour last week, talking about this situation on a number of platforms. When Dreger was talking about what was going to make this deal, is he never mentioned a first-round pick. And I brought that up with a couple of our guests, and they said, well, maybe that's an oversight. Maybe that's just an assumption. Or maybe this team is looking for help right now. They mentioned a top 6 center. They mentioned a defenseman. There was maybe a 4C. There was never any pick. So if it wasn't about a pick, maybe Hellebuyck to Florida still is a possibility. Certainly that would include Anton Lundell coming back the other way. But we'll chop this up with Mike McIntyre. We'll also hear a little bit from Elliot Friedman, as well as our pal Frank Saravelli. Not Frank. Frank was on Frankly Speaking today. Had a couple interesting comments on Hellebuyck and some stuff that I don't think you've heard before. So we'll get to all of that coming up in just a minute. Bombers back at practice, of course, back at home Thursday night against the 2-0 Edmonton Elks, who shocked the league, beating the Montreal Alouettes on the weekend. We'll have much more on the Bombers throughout the week as we get closer to Thursday night as well. Listen, just before we bring in Reem, shout out to all you podcast listeners, and welcome everyone watching with us live on YouTube. Hit that thumbs up button and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Also want to thank all of our sponsors that make the show happen each and every day. Of course, our partners at Coolbet. Do not forget, everybody, the first of the WST Summer Poker Series goes tomorrow night, 8 p.m. Myself, Hammer, Remus will all be in there. We'll have $100 bounties on our head if you take us out. And the top 2 finishers will get tickets for the final, where you'll be playing for a trip to the Coolbet Open in Estonia, first week in September. So join us tomorrow, 8 p.m. We'll have information on our socials. If you played before, same as always, go into poker at Coolbet tournaments and search WST. Lock it in, and we will see you tomorrow for what should be a real fun night. Also want to thank Princess Auto, Chud's Power Sports, Clean Line Plumbing, Heating, and Electrical. Last week for the Tri-Hospital Lottery tickets, midnight Thursday is the deadline. Get them today at trihospitaldream.com. Manitoba Battery, Aikens Lake, Breezy Bend. Had a great round at Breezy. You'll hit that later on. Royal Sports, Boston Pizza, Little Brown Jug, Travel Manitoba, our friends at St. Vital Dental Center, Rolly's Transfer, Assiniboia Downs, back at the track tonight. We do have Monday racing. We'll get to picks later. The Winnipeg Gold Eyes, and of course, a why not question of the day for not AutoCorp at Waverly and McGillivray. Michael Remus, what's going on? How was your Father's Day?
Yeah, good Father's Day. Went to my brother-in-law's pool, had a nice, my daughter had her graduation from, I don't know, junior kindergarten into the next level.
What is up with all these ridiculous graduate? Like, at what point do kids now have a graduation every year?
Well, they just put together a year-end song and got a certificate. I thought it was nice. We've done it a couple of years. It was.
I mean, little kids, but I mean,
she was excited.
Now that your son is in elementary school, is there grade 2 grad?
They have a grade 2 grad? A year-end concert type thing. I mean, you can use the term graduation or not, but I don't think anyone did. It's just a year-end thing, a show that they put on. And yeah, they did one yesterday. She was excited about it, so we had that, and then went for dinner at my parents as well. So saw all the family members. They scheduled my hockey team, Huss, for a game 7:00 yesterday on Father's Day for hockey. And do you think we had enough guys willing to play a 7:00 Sunday Father's Day game? The answer is no. I think we had 4 guys, and maybe you could have scrounged together a couple. So we ended up forfeiting that one. Not a great time. Maybe it was 8:30. Could have swung it 8, but Father's Day, people got plans, Huss. It's like scheduling a game during Thanksgiving almost.
I mean, I agree. It's not the one thing I'll say is that Father's Day is about the dads. So if the dads want to play hockey, they should be able to go to play hockey if they want. Now, they might be saying, hey, what do you mean? I'm getting wined and dined by my family once in 365 days a year. I'm not going to miss that for a stupid summer game. But that is unfortunate timing. I have no idea why you guys play summer hockey. I
love it.
At my most loving of hockey, the thought of going into a rink on the summer solstice, the longest day of the year, it does not compute for me. So, but I will say this, it would have been a hot locker room yesterday talking about what happened in the National Hockey League. I mean, let's get right into it. Middle of the afternoon, Connor jumps into the group chat, Brady to Florida. And then, of course, we saw Pierre LeBrun, Elliot Friedman breaks the, official trade with the picks coming back. It's the 9th overall pick that we've been talking a lot about from the Florida Panthers as maybe being destined for Winnipeg. The 25th pick that was acquired on Saturday. I believe a 29 first-round pick and a 30 second-rounder, if I'm not mistaken. 3 first-round picks, though, but no immediate help for a team in Ottawa that I think feels they're sort of on the cusp of breaking through and being a contender. It obviously does beg the question, are these picks going to be used by the Ottawa Senators, or will they be traded in a subsequent deal to replace Brady Tkachuk? But there's no doubt about it, Remo, a huge blockbuster that has effects on the Panthers, the Ottawa Senators, but on a lot of the other trade talk, including what's happening here in Winnipeg with Connor Hellebuyck.
Yeah, 100%. And it was earlier yesterday where Florida made the trade, trading RFA Mackie Samoskevich to Seattle for a first-round pick. And you're like, oh, okay. Is there going to be a subsequent trade here? And that was 11:59 a.m. And then, yes, a couple hours later, it was reported, and everyone's phone is blowing up that Brady Tkachuk moved from the Ottawa Senators for 3 first-round picks, 2 this year, as you said, and 1 in 2029 to Florida. So credit to Florida for making moves here to get those picks and put together a package that satisfied the Senators. But from all the reports, as Brady in his year-end meeting with GM Steve Staios came out, they asked him his future. He came out and said, hey, I'm not re-signing with you guys in 2 years. And the Senators felt like they had to act now to get what they could. He had a no-trade clause. And Huss, guess what? Guess the 4 teams that he would accept a trade to.
I'm going to guess the Panthers, Vegas, Nashville, Minnesota?
Close. Minnesota at Carolina. So, yes, the two teams in the Stanley Cup
champions. Yes.
Yeah, the two teams in the Stanley Cup final, the team that won the last two, and Minnesota. But he ultimately, kind of forced his hand and, wanted to play with his brother in Florida. And look, Ottawa tried to get actual, NHL players in this trade, but Florida knew they had all the leverage and said, no, we're not trading Anton Lundell. You can have all these draft picks, and then you figure it out. So Brady Tkachuk on his way out, big blockbuster trade, and you do have to wonder, is this just the start of what is going to be a pretty fun draft week?
Well, we'll see. I mean, the problem is that draft picks don't have no move clauses, but like every other player in the league does. So, I mean, unless we're talking about a trade involving those four teams, like how the hell does any other business get done?
It's tough. You look at the trade board. I think you got to look for, younger names. As a name like Matthew Nyes get moved. Mason McTavish, Simon Nemec wants a change of scenery. Jason Robertson, an RFA, Shane Wright as well. So I think you're going to look, if any moves, the younger players that don't have trade protection. But it's definitely becoming an issue where you thought, hey, trade protection is to protect the player and say, yeah, you're not going to have your life uprooted. But instead, it's being used as guys, weaponizing it, saying, hey, trade me only to this team. Now, look, Ottawa didn't have to trade him. They could have hung on for him for 2 years, and he would have walked in free agency, but they felt like they had to act now, and that's well within his right. I mean, to be fair, credit to Brady for being upfront with the team, saying, I'm not going to resign with you. He didn't string them along and say, you know what, maybe I could, maybe I couldn't, and Ottawa felt like they needed to make a decision, and there has been reports, trickling out after the fact, Huss, that there's so much distractions about his future that it was upsetting the locker room. They felt like they had to move him. Part of those distractions caused by, the podcast that he has with his brother and his dad, talking about him going to possibly play together in Florida. So I don't think that podcast really helped any of the speculation as much as people want to yell about.
It didn't help the speculation, but it probably helped speed his exit from Ottawa.
Yes. I
mean, listen, a lot of this goes to back. I mean, it does seem this. We're hearing it more and more that, this is the aftermath of, what happened after the States won and how many of the U.S. players were welcomed back to to their markets by both the media and part of the fan base. And I mean, listen, I don't think that anyone should be shocked that they didn't enjoy that very much. And listen, I mean, unfortunately, when it comes to a certain head of state south of the border, anything that he touches turns political. Some people had no issue with them doing it, but a bunch of others did, made it a big deal. And I think that is a factor in a bunch of these guys, wanting to a place where they didn't have to deal with it. And Tkachuk probably had it the worst. I mean, obviously, Ottawa being the capital of the country, a very political city, a bunch of the writers were going in on him. I mean, I thought it was pretty soft here in Winnipeg for Hellebuyck. But frankly, I personally didn't believe any of those guys should have even been answering those questions. I mean, guess what? These guys are pro athletes. I mean, we're not, if we're getting to the point where we're having a purity test for all of our players here in Winnipeg as to how they voted, who they support, all that, it's a slippery slope that leads to disaster. So I let people have their own opinions, do what they want. Those guys won a gold medal. They were celebrated. I have no issue with it, but a lot of people did. And, I mean, these are human beings. And we've got an interesting piece on this as it relates here to Winnipeg with Hellebuyck that we're going to get to in a minute. But I don't think anyone should be surprised that this has happened. And to be honest, this is why this goes back to what Wyshynski said last week on, maybe wanting a change of scenery is Hellebuyck, to play south of the border is a lot different than demanding a trade to the next team up to win the Stanley Cup. Which is why, Remus, I guess the big question right now, and we'll get into this with Mike, and here's the why not question of the day for not Autocorp, but Waverly and McGillivray, and probably the question of the week is if Florida won't trade Lundell, or they don't have a fit with Florida, which is the obvious place with the cap space, with Bob leaving, that they could handle him, clearly a Stanley Cup contender, everyone wants to play there, he would accept it. I mean, all of that makes sense. If in the Jets' mind after this trade with the picks going out, they don't have what it takes to make this deal, who else is there that can both pay the price to Winnipeg of assets that can be moved to Winnipeg, and at the same point, Hellebuyck agrees to a trade? We were kind of kicking this around on the group chat all weekend, and I'll throw it out to the chat. I mean, if you take Florida out, what's the most likely place, or what are some likely places that you think that Hellebuyck would accept a trade to and would have the capital to pay the Winnipeg Jets the price that they believe their Hart and Vezina Trophy winning goaltender is worth? It's a pretty thin needle to thread right now, Reem.
Yeah, we're talking about, who's a fit for Connor Hellebuyck. Florida seemed to be the number one option. The Paul Maurice connection, Sergei Bobrovsky coming off the books. They don't have any goalies signed for next season. They had the 9th overall pick, which we figured they were going to trade. They need to win. They're set up to win now. That 9th overall pick isn't helping out much. It seemed too perfect, Huss. But when you hear that they didn't want to give up roster players, they didn't want to give up Anton Lundell and a potential trade for Brady Tkachuk, why would they give up those assets for Connor Hellebuyck? So I think Florida, I agree, thin needle. I don't think it's going to happen. And who else is interested? And who would Connor Hellebuyck waive his no trade clause for? Does Vegas have the assets? I'm not so sure. And they got to do some moving around salary when it comes to Adin Hill. Buffalo in need of a goalie. They were flip-flopping in the playoffs. Seems like an obvious fit, but a lot of players aren't waiving no trade clauses to go to Buffalo. Us and what other player? Frank speculates on a number. I thought Carolina could be a fit, but they're pretty well set up, and they just showed, hey, you can win a cup without a superstar goalie. And I do wonder if teams are looking at Hellebuyck's salary and saying, you know what, we're better off getting 2 guys as a tandem that don't cost a lot, and you can have more money up front. But you have seen the superstar goalie lead teams to recent cups in Bobrovsky, in Vasilevsky. But there's also who did Colorado have? Darcy Kemper, as their goalie, Brandon Bussey. So I think there's definitely multiple paths. But we'll see if there's a team that ticks all the boxes for Hellebuyck for him to be willing to move his no trade clause, and if there's a team that are going to give up the assets, because the Jets aren't trading him, Huss. If they don't they're not going to trade him for some offer that doesn't satisfy their needs.
No, for sure. And honestly, from a Jet perspective, I mean, in this situation, the best, and we don't know truly what is the truth, but the best scenario is that he just wants out and is willing to go to a number of U.S.-based teams, as opposed to, no, I just really want to win. I don't feel we're here. Yeah, trade me to Carolina or the Panthers. Because then, I mean, you're really hamstrung. But, I mean, Hellebuyck's situation is very different than Brady Tkachuk. I mean, Brady had 2 years left on his deal. Helly's got 5, which is going to take him to 37, 38 years old. So if he does want to get moved, I think he, much like Dylan Larkin with that term left, is going to need to be a little bit more open to some other options. And, historically, you certainly wouldn't have thought Buffalo is a Stanley Cup contender. They've certainly got a much better argument to make for that today after the season that they just had, but they're still off of it. I mean, he's from Detroit, Michigan. That team hasn't sniffed the playoffs in 10 years. So, I mean, is Detroit a team? I mean, the more teams that can be involved in this, the better for Cheveldayoff to get what he feels that his price. Let's hear what Elliot Friedman had to say. This is from 32 Thoughts from today, saying that the Jets are considering trading Hellebuyck, which tells us all we need to know about a possible trade request.
There have been rumors about Werenski. There have been rumors about There have been rumors about Werenski. There have been rumors about Matthews. There have been rumors about Hellebuyck. I think the Hellebuyck one, we kind of realize now, Winnipeg and Hellebuyck really worked to try to keep this private, but we see what it is now. The reporting is dripping out. Drip, 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 drip. Yes, Winnipeg's considering it. That's everything that we need to know.
All right, so there's a little bit more from Friedman, and this is back to what I was talking about before. And I saw an interesting clip from Jeff O'Neill that was taken from Overdrive right after all these guys came back with some of the reaction of what the long-term effect was that going to be. Well, here's Elliott says that a lot of the other American players playing north of the border did not feel very loved after the Olympic Games returning to their current teams.
What I believe is the truth is that the way the American players who won the gold medal felt in their Canadian markets post-Olympics is a factor here. I think some of those guys, not all of them, but some of them felt a bit hated, and it might have influenced their decisions. Again, you may think that's their problem. You may think that I shouldn't even be bringing that up, but it's a fact, and it's part of this process.
All right, so just a little bit more on all of that. I mean, I can't now listen. I think it was way worse for Tkachuk in Ottawa, certainly, than it was here in Winnipeg, and I think it was probably a little less than Tkachuk for Matthews, but certainly he was right in the middle of it as the captain, and it hurt it all. But this now, I haven't heard this yet, but this is just from about in the last hour from our pal Frank Saravalli on Frankly Speaking today, and. Here's what Frank has to say on the current Hellebuyck situation with the Jets and why we are on Hellebuyck watch this week.
We are on Hellebuyck watch time now officially. And the reason for that is as you see some of these players extricate themselves from spots that they, maybe grew tired of or were in a place where they just wanted a change of scenery and to go south of the border to the U.S. Look, Connor Hellebuyck is open to it. That's for sure. Whether the Winnipeg Jets have come around on this as well for a goalie who at age 33 certainly is in a spot where with 5 years left on his deal, they're going to have to ask these questions at some point sooner rather than later of themselves, as well as Hellebuyck has played. And a .916 save percentage over the course of his career with an incredibly impressive trophy case. Look, this is a spot where 3-time Vezina winner, Hart Trophy, Olympic gold medalist. Can I add in there Medal of Freedom from the United States of America that also went unacknowledged in Winnipeg, which I think definitely left an imprint on him that they did not recognize that.
So that's a little interesting tidbit, Reem. And, we were at the game. I did actually wonder whether they were going to mention the Presidential Medal of Freedom. I mean, it still is sort of funny considering the people that have won that and the circumstances around him getting it. But that is the first that I've heard that their lack of mentioning that when they were celebrating him when he came back. And basically it was a quick announcement for he and Kyle Connor. It seemed like the team didn't want to go there. And I sort of get it because there was a lot of people with their knickers in a knot about the loss and everything afterwards. But you knew that stuff was not all happening in a vacuum.
Yeah, and I do find it interesting that Brian Ray, the co-host, is even laughing about that as well. I mean, we've made a lot of conversations and a lot of comments about the Presidential Medal of Freedom, and do wonder if if that is in fact correct, that he was unhappy that they didn't acknowledge it. And I think a lot of people, I personally found it hard to watch him in goal immediately after for the Winnipeg Jets. After knowing what happened in the Olympics. So I think it was a tough spot for all Canadians. Like, you want to welcome back saying congratulations, but not like too much congratulations. We're going to have to see highlights of that every 4 years, talk about it all the time. Like, congratulations to him for sure. But yeah, there was definitely some political crossover where, a lot of people were unhappy for a number of reasons there, Huss.
The greatest what if question in the NHL right now is that if Nathan McKinnon can hit that damn open net, or Devon Toews can just put it in and not get absolutely robbed by Connor Hellebuyck, and Canada wins that game. Is any of this happening right now? I mean, do I think that Tkachuk would eventually have ended up, somewhere in the States at the end of his contract? Yeah, I do. But I mean, is this trade request happening right now? Because the more and more we hear about it, this isn't. I know everyone wants to pile on last year and blame management. This seems like it's a lot more to do with other things. And I guess we'll find out in the end when it's all settled down, but we'll never really know whether if Canada just goes, they took care of business and Canada's the gold medal final and people aren't all up in a snit afterwards, does everyone live happily ever after? I guess we will. That much we will probably never know.
I'll say it doesn't help that the Jets had a terrible season. We're in last place in January. He signed thinking they were going to be contender. Their big offseason acquisitions are, Jonathan Toews near the end of his career and Gus Nyquist. It was a terrible season. So he wants to win a cup, and I think it's just everything plays a factor here. It's not just going to be one thing because it's a number of things. I don't think he's like saying, "Oh, they didn't acknowledge my Presidential Medal of Freedom, trade me," or he's upset about some of the reaction from.
Sometimes when people get mad at their organization for whatever reasons and, don't feel like they're being appreciated, they decide to do it. Like, to me, there's two different things. What has been said publicly is that it was all about the team's performance last year and needing to get it. I think the more we hear from other people, there's a lot more to it. And that can be taken as disingenuous by some, me included. You're sort of talking out of both sides of your mouth. But again, they have to do it quietly because I think they're smart enough to, particularly Ray Petkow, Helly's agent, that has done so much work with the Jets, knows the way that this team operates. And with 5 years left on Connor Hellebuck's deal, is not giving him away for pennies on the dollar. Here's one more from Frank, though, because this is the question, especially in the aftermath of the Florida trade. Is Florida still a possibility? And if the Jets do trade Hellebuyck, where's he willing to go? And who are some possible suitors and teams in the mix for the three-time Vezina winner?
I think we've arrived at this point in time where you have to look around the league and say, okay, so if it's not Florida, because we have these questions about the assets of what could Florida do to entice a team like the Winnipeg Jets, which other teams would be in the mix to try and land a Connor Hellebuyck? And these are the six that I'd be focusing on, or the five additional ones other than the Florida Panthers. The Utah Mammoth, they have a bunch of assets right now that can help the Winnipeg Jets, that are young, that'll fit their scheme, that are cost efficient, that I think they realize how much they over-relied on Karel Vejmelka last year, and they want to be a serious contending team to come out of the West. We know the Kings need a goalie. I don't know that that Connor Hellebuyck would sign off on LA. Like, he just doesn't strike me as a sit in hours of traffic, even if he could be at the beach and fish kind of guy. San Jose might be a little bit different because of the young team that they're building. But I definitely have my eye on Detroit and Buffalo as well, because the Red Wings haven't been able to get it right. They've got some young goalies that they're very excited about. But Connor Hellebuyck is a Michigan kid. To go back to Michigan would be a heck of a story, particularly in light of what's going on with Dylan Larkin, another Michigan kid on his way out. And the Sabres, a team that is obviously close. They're in the conversation now. They're in the circle. That's the big thing that they have to solve for. Jarmo Kekalainen has to solve for this summer, is fixing their goaltending once and for all. We shouldn't be flip-flopping back and forth multiple times in a series to try and get it right. These are the five additional teams other than Florida that I'm looking at.
All right, so there's and that's interesting. I hadn't thought much about LA. San Jose, I didn't really include because, I mean, they're not a playoff team yet. They certainly are on a trajectory that could be a contender, and maybe that would be attractive. And I said before, my big questions about Detroit and Buffalo would they be on that no move list? Would he be open to that? Certainly would be closer to family. He'd get to the States. Detroit's interesting because, as I said, they haven't been a playoff team in a long time. And their captains, in some ways, maybe Detroit makes a move to try to get Hellebuyck and placate Dylan Larkin. Does he change his tune if his teammate from Team USA shows up there? That'll be something that we'll get into. We'll hit it with Mike coming up a little bit later on. But there's the latest from Frank and Elliot on the Hellebuyck situation. We're going to head to Ottawa and talk to AJ Jakubec. I was going to talk to him about his World Cup travels, and then the trade happened, so we'll hit both of that. We'll start off with the Tkachuk deal, and then Mike McIntyre is going to jump on with us. Folks, I mentioned it right off the top, but Tri-Hospital Lottery goes next week. You've got until Thursday night at midnight to get your tickets in support of the Health Sciences Center, the St. Boniface Hospital, and the HSC Children's Hospital. It is Manitoba's biggest grand prize jackpot ever. You got your choice of one of five $1.7 million dream homes or $1.35 million cash, tax-free. Make sure to get it on the 50-50 plus jackpot as well. The prize is over $600,000 for the winner. And there's also the extra cash plus, which has 125 winners of $170,000 in all cash prizes. And again, it's all in support of our three major hospitals here in Winnipeg. Go to tryhospitaldream.com today to get your tickets and count yourself in. And, of course, you can also pick them up in person at London Drugs or Red River Co-op locations if you want to do it in person. Thursday night deadline, midnight, tryhospitaldream.com. Shout out to our friends at Clean Line. Hopefully we won't have any plumbing issues like we did, what was it, a week, 10 days ago or so, just about 2 weeks ago, that crazy storm. But know that when you are in a jam, when it comes to plumbing services, Clean Line are the leaders in residential and commercial plumbing, heating and electrical as well, and have your back 24/7, 365 with emergency services. 501-2000 is the number to get to. They have you covered, and you can also make an appointment at any point for the great services of Clean Line by giving them a buzz online at cleanline.ca. But 500-2001, 24-hour service. Much like Adam Lowry's got the back of his Jet teammates, Clean Line has your back as the go-to guys for plumbing and, of course, an official sponsor of the Winnipeg Jets. Our friends at Manitoba Battery are ready to power the Blue Bombers to victory on Thursday. Manitoba Battery, proud sponsor of your Bombers and Winnipeg Sports Talk, and the place where you can get your batteries for everything on your list for summer fun. Golf carts, ATVs, side-by-sides, motorbikes, outboard motors, RVs, you name it. If it needs a battery, Manitoba Battery's got you covered, and they'll do it with the best prices in town, beating the pants off the big box stores, not to mention the best in customer service. They'll also deliver those batteries to you anywhere inside the perimeter if you need it. Check out Manitoba Battery, Logan Avenue, as well as Dovercourt Drive, 2 locations in Winnipeg to serve you. And, of course, if you do have a move coming up, folks, holler at our friends at Roley's Transfer. Family-owned and operated for over 60 years in Winnipeg, the most trusted name in moving. And if you check them out online at roleys.com, you'll see in the top right corner, request an estimate. Put in the promo code WST for a special discount on moving services and moving supplies for Winnipeg Sports Talk listeners. And then let them know when and where you're moving and what needs to be moved. The friendly staff at Roley's will turn it around quickly with a great quote and get you locked in for the white glove treatment and service that they've been famous for now into their 7th decade. Roley's Transfer is the most trusted name in the game when it comes to moving. Find out more today and book an estimate online at roleys.com. All right, more on Connor Hrabchak with Mike McIntyre coming up. Right now, though, let's get the aftermath of the Brady Tkachuk trade in the nation's capital and talk a little World Cup with AJ Jakubec. AJ, it's great to talk to you. I was excited. We've been planning for a week to talk about your World Cup travels in Canada. And then we get hijacked yesterday by this trade. And I imagine your show is going to get hijacked today about this trade. First of all, how are you, buddy? You've had quite the whirlwind, which we'll get into in a minute. But home for a couple days, you reintroduce yourself to your bed?
Yeah, and my girlfriend. So, yeah, just basically gone for about a week or so and then flew back on the red eye for Friday. Canadian Track and Field Championships were here. I got to see Andre DeGrasse run. There's all the best Canadian athletes were there, so that was great. And Red Black Saturday, that was a debacle. The one good thing about the Brady Tkachuk trade is I don't have to talk about the Red Blacks today, which is a bonus because they did not look good at all. Actually had Sunday off, and then about a 5 hour. We got an extra hour today. It was supposed to be 3 hours. With 2 hours of Argentina, Austria from 1 to 3, and now we're 1 to 6. Steve Staios speaking this afternoon, and I'm sure we'll have him on as well separately. And it's quite the day. But off to Vancouver tomorrow, and I've got that to look forward to and another Canadian game. So looking forward to that. But today it's all about Brady.
Yeah, we'll get to the World Cup in a minute because what you've been doing is absolutely incredible. But take us through yesterday. I mean, you get the alert like the rest of us and went, holy bleep, this is actually happening. And how surprised you that it happened when it did, and it came in the form of entirely futures?
Yeah, surprised just because I think, look, I'll give Steve Staios and his crew a lot of credit. And they've been really good at this the last couple of years, keeping things quiet. Like, way better to not have a circus the last few weeks like we're seeing in Detroit with Dylan Larkin. So the fact that they were able to keep this under wraps, really impressive. And I think, give full credit to the organization for being able to do that. And look, it's not even in your control, because if someone else wants to leak it, if, Brady wants to leak it or Keith wants to leak it, his agent, one of the other teams that might be involved, you're kind of screwed. But the fact that they were able to get this done without that circus, I think is a positive. But yeah, surprised at the timing, just because, we always knew in the back of our minds that this is something that could happen, but because we hadn't heard anything, you're not really waiting for it. And all of a sudden it's and that's actually Pierre LeBrun. It's not like Pierre LeBrun insider. So it was okay, yeah, no, this is a done deal. It's a fascinating move. A lot of different tentacles to it, not just here but around the league as well.
What's the reaction in the Ottawa market?
Well, Brady's not really all that popular, so there's that. There had become a bit of a split on Brady in recent weeks, months, even going back to Four Nations. From that perspective, I'm curious to see what it's going to be like on the show today. But, just looking at what I've seen so far online and just the buzz, I feel like, it's not going to be overly complimentary to him. I mean, the last time he spoke to the media, he didn't really sound like a guy that wanted out. And at the same time, was complaining about the white noise. And at the time, I was thinking, well, a lot of the white noise comes from you and your family, from the podcast, from, just things you hear around the National Hockey League, like Keith Tkachuk running his mouth at the Olympics, telling everyone that would listen, that he was going to get Brady out of Ottawa. So that's one of those things you just park in the back of your mind after hearing it from hockey people that were at the Olympics. And here we are. Some of that white noise stuff that, he talked about, well, it's self-inflicted white noise, or at least it was. And now here we are. I mean, the complaints, basically the beef that, that this was something that was created by the media. I don't know, Larry Brooks. I thought at the time, remember Larry Brooks? And maybe it wasn't a big deal out in Winnipeg, but when Larry Brooks came out and, talked about the Rangers trying to get Brady Tkachuk, he got roasted from a lot of people in Ottawa. And I was just well, don't shoot the messenger here. We've been hearing this crap for a long time. And a lot of it, in my opinion, had some legs. So Yeah, it felt inevitable that this was going to be the conclusion. It's disappointing that, in today's day and age, when you've got a no move, you can basically choose where you're going to go, and that limits what you're going to get in return. And I think they did okay, but clearly, everything depends on what you're able to get with the assets and the cap space that you now have. Do you get a Jason Robertson? Well, all of a sudden, if you get a Jason Robertson, this deal looks a lot better. But if you don't get that type of player, then, it's hard to imagine Ottawa, winning this deal. That being said, you don't want an unhappy captain. It's fascinating to hear some of the stuff like I had heard a few weeks ago, but wasn't really sure what to make of it, that there's some players in that locker room that kind of tired of Brady's act. So if that's the case as well, then, sometimes it can be a little bit of addition through subtraction. Look, they lost their third best player on the team, which I think is a bonus in the sense that if it was your best player, it's a different situation. But Jake Sanderson and Tim Stützle are the Ottawa Senators' best players, and they were by a mile last year. It wasn't even close. It was probably closer the year before, but it was by a mile last year. So to that end, you still have a lot to build with, but you have a lot of work to do because, that's a big hole that you lost, and you already need, some more goal scorers, and now you need that times two.
Do you expect, this team now has 3 first-round picks, 9, 25, and 32, and the 32 can't be moved. This could be a crazy week. Do you expect the Sens to make those picks, or are those picks likely going to try to be packaged up to, get a viable replacement moving forward for Tkachuk in the Sens lineup?
I'll be surprised if they draft, all 3 like that. That'll surprise me. Whether you part with, the later first, whether you part with the earlier first, whether you part with both, I guess that remains to be seen. And again, that probably depends on what type of player you're adding back to your lineup. But yeah, I will be surprised if they're taking all 3. The one thing I will say is this is a team that, I like the roster, and I like the roster even with the removal of Brady. You need to add more goal scorers, but I still think this is a pretty good team. I think they gave Carolina a pretty good run, and they were missing 3 of their defensemen in that series, and they still were in every game. In Carolina, we saw exactly how good that team is. Far and away the best team in the NHL this year. They were well-deserving Stanley Cup champions. And I know Colorado obviously had a better regular season, but based on what we saw in the playoffs, 16-3, and, they sucked the life out of Philly and Montreal. And, Ottawa, at least I felt they were in the series and in every game. But, I think there's a lot to like here with the Ottawa roster. But, they don't have a lot of assets. They don't have a lot of picks and prospects. Now, clearly, in my opinion, they're going to use those to get better in the here and now. But, if you do stock the cupboard a little bit, that's not the worst thing in the world because, the teams that are kind of where Ottawa is at in terms of, assets and picks and prospects, it's the teams that have been winning. It's the Vegases, it's the Carolinas, it's the Colorados, it's the Dallases, the Floridas. So, to that end, they do need to restock the cupboards, but I think the window has started here in Ottawa. I think they've got a really good team that can compete to win the division, and we'll see. Obviously, Florida is going to be, I think, the favorite to win the division if they're healthy, given what they've got. But I like what Ottawa's got, and now you've just got to find a couple of goal scorers. How do you find that? We'll wait and see. You're not going to replace Brady Tkachuk. You're not going to replace that type of player. Those guys don't really exist in terms of power forwards that can score you 30 goals a year. But if you can get a couple of goal scorers back, I think Ottawa might be better off in the long run, and we'll see how it plays out. But they got a lot of work to do, that's for sure.
Hey, just before we move past the Sens, you mentioned that the fan base was sort of split. How different was it after the Olympics than before? I think we all knew, and Winnipeg's similar. We've got a bunch of great American players on this team, and there had always been a little bit of buzz, or maybe frankly just people's assumptions that they'd want to be in the States. But again, a bunch of these guys were signing long-term contracts here. Obviously, there was a lot of noise around that Olympic gold medal. Canadians were bent that they lost. And a lot of people, I thought, sort of put their own politics into the visuals of their victory lap. Did that change things significantly for Tkachuk? I mean, I think a lot of players had to deal with it fairly or unfairly based on your perspective when they got back to Canada. But it seemed to be the loudest in Ottawa, and maybe it being such a political town, that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, it's such a tough one because, like, we're in times that, haven't really been in, at least in my lifetime, with just the relationship with the United States. And a lot of people, I know a lot of people that just aren't going there. So, like, for me, I certainly don't endorse the current group that's in charge there, but I still love the United States. I still have a lot of friends there, and I still love going down there, but a lot of people, for better or worse, aren't going. So I think it's really struck a nerve with people in this country. And so I mean, it's hard to really know if there wasn't this political turmoil, what the situation would be, just because of the rivalry and how, a lot of people were just upset anyways, right? We're always upset when Canada doesn't win best on best.
Let me ask you this, AJ. If Nathan McKinnon scores that damn goal and we win the game, are we having the same conversation today?
Yeah, I think we are, because I think it was inevitable he was going anyways, just because I think that, sure. Yeah, but I feel like it sped up some of the stuff for sure, because I mean, there's no doubt there's some people that might have turned on him because of some of the politics. There's no doubt about that. So I still feel like this is something that's been lingering for a while. And I just feel like Keith was going to help engineer this, just like it happened with Matthew. So like, I feel like it was inevitable anyways, but I mean, there's no doubt it didn't help the situation, but I feel like a lot of the damage was already done anyways.
Keith gets to play meddling hockey dad for like a full 25-year term. It's incredible. Usually that stuff ends around minor hockey days. AJ Jakubec is with us in Ottawa. AJ, we had planned this conversation completely outside of the Sens talk to talk some World Cup. And you, for individuals that know you as the voice of the Red Blacks and the longtime afternoon host in Ottawa, you may not be aware that AJ is legitimately the king of the World Cup. AJ was in Qatar 4 years ago. AJ made it to 4 games in 4 days, which has to be a record that will never be touched.
4 in 1 day.
Sorry, 4 games in 1 day. Yes, right now. I mean, it's a bit of a different tour. But listen, just before we talk about all your stops, let's start with Canada. You were there on Wednesday or Thursday for the Qatar game. Historic victory, obviously with the cloud of the Kone injury. But man, you've been to Honduras, Costa Rica. You've been following this team for years. Where does that one rank amongst all of the many CANMNT games that you've been? What a special day.
Yeah, and by the way, I'd never do 4 in 1 day again. It was absurd. I was absolutely exhausted.
On the show. Oh yeah, he's doing it.
Yeah. So with 1 hour apart, running to the taxi stand, taking a cab to the next game, running to the next game. Yeah, it was absolutely absurd, but great experiences. So yeah, no, it was phenomenal. There's different touch points. Like this didn't just go from 0 to 100. When it comes to, the support of the national team and just seeing, like, I know a lot of people are like, I was stunned to see the visuals. And it's like, well, they've been coming. Like it's been, like you look at whether it was the Panama game, which to me was the first one that really started things, the Davies goal. Like you could really feel that helped turn a corner. Atmosphere wise and different things. Ice Teca in Edmonton, the games against the US and Jamaica, in Hamilton and Toronto to secure qualifying. So, and even going to Costa Rica, like, when I went to the Azteca in El Salvador, there's like not many Canadians there, and it was just after the pandemic, so a lot of people weren't traveling yet. But Costa Rica, you could see it, like we had our own section, so that was awesome. And you can see it in Qatar. Like, I mean, you were there, like I saw all 32 teams there, and if you're to rank the fan bases in terms of how they were actually at a game, and this isn't about how many jerseys were at a game. Like, for example, Portugal. Okay, there are a lot of Portuguese fans. I saw Portugal play 4 times in Qatar. There's probably a couple of thousand Portuguese people at those games, and about 40,000, I call them posers, that, were there to support Ronaldo. I had to turn flags around because people would be posing for pictures, and I'm like, no, you need to turn the flag around. You got it upside down. That's the kind of nonsense that I was dealing with in Qatar. So in terms of fan bases that actually were there in Qatar, I'd rank Canada 10th or 12th, in the upper third. It
was a good showing.
It was a really good showing, and badly outnumbered.
Like what we're seeing now.
Oh, for sure. But I mean, again, it just speaks to kind of the steps here. It's not like Canada was 29th in terms of, the fans that they brought to Qatar. They were probably 10th or 12th, badly outnumbered the Belgians, badly outnumbered the Croatians. We're outnumbered for sure by the Moroccans, who are a top 5 team there in terms of just, how many people were supporting them from Morocco or just the Arab world or whatever. I mean, that was a tough ticket to see Morocco as that tournament went on. But yeah, I mean, so you build from there, you go to Copa America, there's 5,000 people in New York doing the march, which was phenomenal, even though you're, outnumbered 75,000 to 5,000 for that game in the Copa America semi. I felt Canada really showed out there, but no doubt this is a different level. I'll be honest, I was a little underwhelmed in Toronto. I know the pictures look good from the march, but leaving the march when we did Trinity Bellwoods Park, there was 1,000 people there, max, maybe 700 or 800. And so it was a little underwhelming. This is a home World Cup. And then, the crowd was still good and the visuals were still good for the march, but to see what it became in Vancouver was different level. And just some of those visuals from above, I don't know if you saw any from the SkyTrain incredible shots where it's just a sea of red. So it was a great day, really, really great day. But, I do feel if Canada's going to build on this, it can't just be it. It can't just be a 6-0 win over Qatar and that's it. That was your World Cup. No, you've got an opportunity to finish first. You've got an opportunity to stay in Vancouver, which I think is so important. It's not even about the draw. It's just about this is a home World Cup. So you want more of that. If you could get a couple more games of that, win your round of 32 game and then go into the round of 16, everything at that point is gravy. And look, it'll still be great if they win a round of 32 game in the States, but it's just different with 50,000 people supporting you rather than say 5, and being outnumbered by South Koreans with their large Korean population in Los Angeles. So I just feel to keep the momentum going of this tournament on and off the pitch, I think it's huge that they get at least a point against the Swiss.
That's the plan for Wednesday afternoon. AJ, I love talking road trips and I love talking fan stuff, and you are the man when it comes to the World Cup. Let's talk quickly. You were there. We were both in the house in Toronto last Friday or a week ago Friday to get things going. You then went to you were 3 countries. 6 games in 7 days?
6 games, 7 days, 3 countries. Yeah.
Okay, so give us the Coles notes on your itinerary after the final whistle of the 1-1 tie in Toronto against Bosnia.
Yeah. So basically, as soon as that one ended, we jumped on the GO train. We were staying in Oakville, jumped in the car, drove to Utica, which is about halfway to Boston. Next day, drove into Boston, experienced the Scots. Basically, I don't want to say tearing down the city because you give them credit. They're not all about
they drank
violence they're not about violence. They're not about vandalism. They just go and drink the play. Like we went to this bar and like there are Scots everywhere, like absolutely everywhere in the streets, every bar. So we go to this bar and, we walk in and all they had was Bud Light because there's nothing left on draft. And this is at like, I don't know, 1:30 in the afternoon. Like we're not talking like 5 in the afternoon. This is at like 1 in the afternoon, and they're out of beer other than Bud Light. And then all of a sudden, here comes some cases of Corona, and here comes some cases of Sam Adams, and just drinking and singing their songs, and very friendly people. As pretty much anyone that has gotten to know some Scots through the years. I mean, Tartan Army, fantastic. No Scotland, no party for a reason. That's their slogan. So, yeah, the one thing I will say is that game that night, they played Haiti. It was their first World Cup game since 1998, and they won 1-0. It wasn't a great game, but the atmosphere after the anthem kind of died a little bit. And I just think all those Scots in the sun drinking all day, 9 o'clock start, train to Foxborough, like it just tuckered them out. So yeah, it wasn't ideal that way, but ended up getting back into the city. I flew out the next day, 5:30 to Monterey. What a great experience that was. What a fantastic city. And just to see a game in Mexico in the World Cup, how they embrace it, phenomenal. Great stadium with the iconic shot of the mountain in the background, and saw Sweden beat Tunisia 5-1 that day. Then flew the next day to LA, saw New Zealand, Iran. That was a great game, 2-2, one of the best games of this tournament so far, back and forth in terms of the chances. So that was fantastic. And then off to San Fran / Santa Clara / Oakland, because I flew into San Fran, got to my hotel in Oakland, got to the game in Santa Clara, back to my hotel in Oakland. It was Austria-Jordan that night. And then 3 hours of sleep and an early flight to Vancouver. So, yeah, it was, and like I'm not flying. There's no way I'd fly in for a Canada game on game day, unless that's the only option I have. So, got a full day in Vancouver, and then the full experience of Vancouver and the game that was our first ever World Cup win. So it's great to be there for that. Now it's kind of mainly Canada, because I'm not missing any Red Blacks games for this. So called Red Blacks on the weekend, and yeah, just gearing up for what should be a good one, and hopefully more history if Canada can top the group.
Well, the plan is
the point.
Yeah, the plan is draw or win. Stay in Vancouver for the round of 32, win that game, stay in Vancouver for the round of 16. Just before we go, I mean, thoughts on where the team's at and the challenge ahead without Ismail Kone?
Yeah, that was the only blemish on that day. It's, was gutted for him, just, to see what happened to him. I thought it was a brutal tackle. I'm glad Canada, kind of let up on the guy, but it was a brutal tackle and needless, senseless. So unfortunate. Canada's rallied around players before, Max Crepeau at the last World Cup. I know they didn't win, but clearly Tejan Buchanan at Copa America. I think Nathan Saliba can do a lot of the things that Ismail Kone can do. The problem is if there's further injuries now. Like I feel like Canada can survive this. It's a devastating blow. I mean, don't get me wrong. Like he's one of Canada's top 5 players, and based on the form he's been in this year, like Davies has been hurt, Bombito's been hurt, David hasn't had a great year at Juventus. You could argue that Kone's been Canada's best player in 2026, just playing for his club at Sassuolo and Serie A in Italy. So, look, it's a blow. I do think Nathan Saliba, like this is a guy that, there's Bundesliga interest and some other interest based on what kind of year he had in Belgium. So I think he can do a lot of the things that Kone can do, but you don't have anyone else that can do that. Like there's no other like-for-like replacement. Like Saliba, I feel like is a like-for-like replacement that just doesn't have the same type of experience that Kone does. But we've seen it before at Copa America. Like a lot of the beauty of these tournaments is sometimes there's a player that really, I don't want to say comes out of nowhere, because it's not like Saliba's coming out of nowhere, but, just has this kind of welcome to the party type of moment. And, we had it with Schaffelberg and Bombito at the last tournament, the major tournament, of course, Copa America. We'll see if Saliba can be that guy in this tournament. I think he's got the capability of doing that, even though, it's a lot to ask. But yeah, we'll see how it all plays out. But now all of a sudden depth is a big concern in midfield where it wasn't for me just because you had Saliba. And, you've got other players. Segura can play in central midfield. You've got Matthew Chouanier. You've got Jonathan Osorio. But, that's where it becomes problematic is if you lose. Like Saliba's got to play, kind of 90 minutes every game. And if he does, then I think Canada's in good shape. If everything else is working, if David's in that same type of form and Laren and Ahmed and, the back line playing the way they did, it was encouraging with Bombito, and we'll see where Davies is at if he's able to come off the bench against the Swiss. So I still think Canada's got the quality to at least get to the round of 16 in this tournament, and who knows, maybe even spring an upset or two beyond that, depending on who they face. But yeah, it sucks for Kone, and it's still a blow. You can't hide the fact that when you lose a top 5 player on your team, it's going to be a loss.
AJ, I'm crossing my fingers that we will be sharing a pint together in Van in either the round of 32 or round of 16. Thanks so much for doing this. I love the fact that you got a little rest and got to call a football game, and the Brady Tkachuk saga has made you not have to talk very much about the 0-2 start for the Red Blacks. Have a great 5 hours with the fans of Ottawa today. I'm sure there'll be lots of feedback on the text line and on the hotline, and travel safe out to Vancouver, man. And hopefully you can see the result that the entire nation is hoping for on Wednesday afternoon.
Yeah, I would love to keep this momentum going, so we'll see how it goes. And it's that'll be a welcome distraction from the Brady Tkachuk stuff and the Red Black start. So here's to another Canada win.
Appreciate you, buddy. Thanks so much for doing this. Good stuff with AJ. Hey, speaking of World Cup, we had such a good time last Thursday at Boston Pizza. We're running it back on Wednesday, and I would encourage you, if you are able to, take Wednesday afternoon off, get out of the office, come and join us at BP Taylor. We'll do the show early at noon. It's another programming note. Noon show, because we don't want to be doing the show live when Canada's playing the Swiss. So at 12 to 2, we'll do the show at BP Taylor, and then we will take the headsets off and sit back and hopefully watch Canada win the group for the first time in Canadian soccer history. So BP Taylor, the 24th, I guess that is the 24th, noon start for WST. Come and join us. It'll be a great spot to watch the game, including all of the local Boston pizzas. Also remind you folks, get your tickets. A week tomorrow is our Gold Eyes game. So winnipegsportstalk.com. If you haven't already got your tickets for the WST patio party, we hope to see you all there. Should be a great time. Next day is Canada Day, so you should be able to have lots of fun that evening. Again, get your tickets today, winnipegsportstalk.com. And don't forget, tomorrow, WST Poker Series is back. We started at 8 p.m. over at Coolbet. Top 2 qualifiers go into the final for the trip to Estonia for the Coolbet Open. All right, Mike's going to join us in just a minute. Got to thank our friends at Princess Auto. Of course, Princess Auto Stadium's the place to be Thursday night. And 7 days a week, the place to be is the brand new Princess Auto flagship store on Panet Road. It's unbelievable. They got a restaurant in there. You can shoot a crossbow. You can work in the shop. A massive section of hunting, camping, fishing stuff as well. So get on that. Get down to Princess Auto Stadium on Thursday. And if you haven't, make sure to the brand new Princess Auto store over on Panet Road by HQ. And you can find out more online at princessauto.com. Shout out to the guys over at Chud's Power Sports. I know the Derminator and everyone had big Saturday with the Covey Moto demo ride day. But right now, as we're getting into summer, I guess it's officially on. Now's the time to check out Chud's Power Sports and their incredible selection of new and used vehicles, including motorcycles, ATVs, side-by-sides, golf carts, boats and outboard motors, RVs, Argos, and other incredible off-road vehicles. They've been doing it for 80 years as Manitoba's power sports superstore with the most experienced customer service staff in the game, great financing options, and you can also check them out. Like, get out there and see Terminator and the gang, corner of Highway 8 and 231 in Gimli. You can also check out what they've got going at chudspowersports.com, and make sure to click on that e-commerce store link or True North Parts for incredible clearance deals on gear and accessories as well from our friends at Chuds Power Sports and online at chudspowersports.com. And hey, big shout out to our friends at St. Vital Dental Center. I know we were just talking World Cup. We've got a very excited Dr. Terry who's going to be in the house in Vancouver on Wednesday to see Canada, Switzerland. But he'll be back taking care of teeth as he's done, and St. Vital Dental Center's done for generations of Winnipeggers and Manitobans. If you're looking for a long-term home for you and your family, they'll take care of clients from 6 months to 99 plus with a full range of services from cleanings and checkups to things like dental implants. St. Vital Dental Center does it all. Beautiful new facility, 167 St. Anne's Road, with convenient free parking right behind the building. StVitalDental.ca is where you'll find them online. Make an appointment and tell them the boys at WST sent you. All right, let's get Mike McIntyre in from the Winnipeg Free Press. Mike, hope you had a great Father's Day and weekend.
I did, yeah. Got out on the links with my dad, my son, my brother. Did not play very well. Managed to beat my dad, which I didn't beat my son and my brother. Those days are long gone. They're both a lot better than me. But yeah, it was a great day.
Where'd you go? Kildonan, home track?
No, Larders. We played out at Larders. Beautiful condition Larders is in. Moved in a brisk 4-hour, 10-minute round, which I thought for a Sunday of Father's Day. So shout out to the folks at Larders. They keep everyone moving, and we were responsible probably for a little bit of the delay as we looked for some golf balls along the way. But yeah, it was a great time. Also getting to know the new McIntyre family member, Huss. I know NHL free agency doesn't start till next Wednesday, Canada Day, but we made a big free agent addition. Longtime viewers, fans of Piper, and our older dog Bodie will be happy to know there's now a third four-legged McIntyre rescue. Her name is Ruby. We got her last Tuesday. She's an absolute delight. There's the picture of Ruby. Those ears, I must say our Wi-Fi has never been better in our house. We're getting just tremendous reception. She's just 5 months old, and my goodness, her and Piper are already best buddies. They're actually both laying beside me right now. We'll see if a puppy fight breaks out during our chat here, but it's been great for everybody in the house, and yeah, we're just in love with her. So that's been eventful in the last few days. And Huss, just as we're coming on here, we got some breaking news, some breaking hockey news. No, it's not a trade. I don't know if you've seen this yet. The Hockey Hall of Fame just announced the class of 2026, and there is a Winnipeg Jet connection. 5 players are going into the Hall. One of them is Keith Tkachuk, and I imagine Keith had a pretty good Father's Day yesterday, Huss, given that his 2 boys are now going to be playing for the same team. So one day after the Brady Tkachuk trade, Keith finds out that he's a Hockey Hall of Famer. The others, by the way, I mean, there's a lot of connections for Winnipeg. Pekka Rinne, who can forget? If we were going to put a chant in the Hockey Hall of Fame, would Pull Your Pekka be up there as one of the better chants?
Yes, it would be.
Pull Your Pekka from 2018. Carey Price, another individual familiar to Jets fans. Patrice Bergeron, and Cindy Curley, a great women's hockey player. And then in the builder category, Brian Burke. You think he'll put on a tie for the event, or will he just have it draped around his neck?
Yeah, he basically has turned the tie into the Hockey Night in Canada towel.
Yes.
It's just there hanging around. Well, listen, I mean, you mentioned Keith Tkachuk. who did have quite the Father's Day. What was your immediate reaction when you got the alert that Brady was going to join Matthew down in Florida for 3 first-rounders and a second-rounder, but no player off the roster coming back?
Right. Well, it's funny. We were having a barbecue pool party at a family member's yesterday, late afternoon and evening, and it was my son. I was in the pool, and it was my son who shouted it out. My first instinct, this is the journalist in me, was for him to check the source because, of course, there's a lot of dubious reporting of various things. So, I mean, my first reaction, Huss, was this was something someone had made up and my son had been tricked. Then, of course, he told me where, there was multiple sources and they were legitimate. So I must say, I'm not shocked. I guess I would only say I'm shocked if I truly believed kind of the front that everybody was putting on in Ottawa, including Brady himself, like saying, "Oh, I'm getting tired of this noise. There's nothing to it." I've long believed that there's noise, there's smoke, there's fire. And, the fact that he ends up with his brother doesn't surprise me at all. I see Steve Staios today, although it was reported there was a 4-team list, I think, that really it was kind of sort of only one. And, this is becoming an increasing reality, I guess, that we're seeing quite a few players, and maybe not a coincidence that they're American players with strong connections that are now, trying to force their way out and build a few super teams, I guess, south of the border. So not surprised, I guess, good on Ottawa. And, they kind of kept this under wraps, right? Like now it's come out today that this is something that's been brewing for over a month. And, I guess they managed to kind of keep it away from the insiders until the trade broke. And that probably maybe helped some leverage that Ottawa had. But let's face it, I mean, this is a big blow to Ottawa, a team that felt like it was building towards something. I don't know that. I mean, there's lots of great futures here, no question. It was a good return. Might be a great return. Just not sure how much that helps them next year.
Well, ask me in a week. Because, I mean, the big question is whether the 9 and the 25 pick are used. They can't trade the 32nd pick. That was part of it. They got their pick back at the end of the round. That can't be dealt.
Yeah.
I mean, I did immediately think, like, the 25 and 32, you might be able to get the Ruck twins there.
Mm-hmm.
And that, I think, would be really exciting for that fan base. People would be pretty fired up about that. The question is what they do with 9, whether that is flipped for a player that can come in and hopefully be part of that top 6, because it's a pretty big hole with Brady Tkachuk not being there. But Mike, I mean, when we heard Hellebuyck speak at the end of the year, he was speaking in terms of the team. We weren't good enough this year. I came here to win the Stanley Cup. And, we need to get these changes. My clock is ticking. It was all about performance. The more we hear Wyshynski, Elliot Friedman, Frank Saravelli talk, it seems like there's a lot more to it. How much of this is a hangover from the way those players were treated when they came back north of the border after they won gold medals?
Yeah, I think it is a significant part. And we know, in Connor Hellebuck's case, he maybe got more blowback than anybody on that team and that plays in a Canadian market, because of the Medal of Honor that he received. And, he was kind of singled out by the U.S. president for extra praise. And, we heard from Connor Hellebuyck, forget about what he said at the end of the season. Go back to the first time he spoke publicly after the Olympics. And I'm not talking about the interview he did with the team website, but when he actually spoke to us, you may remember us, like he came out sort of guns a-blazing about some of the vitriol that had come his wife's way. And, Connor Hellebuyck was sort of saying, like, I'm a big boy, I can take it. But when it starts affecting my family, specifically my wife, That's another thing entirely. And it's clear that there was some, there was some frayed emotions out of all that. Now, is that something that continued? Like, I think we heard in the arena, we continued to see Connor Hellebuyck, by and large, was universally being praised by Jets fans. Like, it's not like he was getting booed by his own fans or anything like that. Did the Jets team get booed at times? Well, sure. They weren't playing very well and had kind of a miserable season. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think it's certainly a factor. Is it the determining factor? I don't think it would be. But, I still, and a lot of people have said similar, like, my goodness, what went on in Milan in those, the dorms where the U.S. team stayed and on the group chats and like.
Never mind Milan, Mike. What about in the week afterwards when Helly's getting dragged, when Brady Tkachuk is getting dragged? And like, I think the media was pretty like, whatever. A few of you guys asked him questions about Trump. I don't know why, but whatever. It happened. But in Ottawa, it was way more. And I mean, obviously the capital of the city,
right?
Very liberal political, city that I think kind of went at Brady a little harder than maybe some of the other ones. Yeah. But you talk about the group chat. What do you think the rest of the guys were saying as they were coming back and being celebrated wherever they went when these guys were going through that north of the border? Like, I think it was definitely something that was damaging to the plight of the Canadian teams, regardless of whether you agree or disagree with it.
Yeah, and the other thing unique to Ottawa, Huss, I mean, who can forget the whole Linus Ullmark? And, I know a lot of the rumor mill, which was extremely slow. I'm not going to repeat what some of the rumors were out there. It was more than just Linus Ullmark that some of those salacious rumors were getting oxygen on social media. And I think eventually they became impossible to ignore, right? Where like the team itself had to address them. I think if you search hard enough, like Brady Tkachuk's name was involved in a lot of those rumors as well. And I'm sure that didn't sit too well with him. And, so it may not just be the political fallout of the U.S. Olympic team and then the American guys returning to their Canadian markets. It may be just the fishbowl that you live in Canada. And, some of what we saw going on in Ottawa, it is interesting. You even have a guy like Dylan Larkin who's playing for an American team right now. In fact, he's a homegrown guy and he wants out. And, so I think there's also the motivation we're seeing, Huss, that a lot of these guys want to find a way to play together. It's kind of what we saw and you still see to a degree, like in the NBA, where you get a bunch of buddies that decide they want to play together. And this isn't house league hockey where that's, pretty easy. You let the convener know that little Jimmy and little Tommy and little Stu, they all want to be on the same, peewee team. This is high stakes, high level hockey. And we just really haven't seen this, certainly not to this degree in the NHL. And the natural question now is like, where does it end? Does Austin Matthews join in? Does Zach Werenski join in? Certainly here in Winnipeg, Connor Hellebuyck. I will say, Huss, the thing that intrigued me most yesterday was the trade before the trade, which was the Mackie Samoskevich trade to Seattle to get that 25th. And I don't know, I was on the golf course when that one happened. My radar certainly went up as it related to Hellebuyck. And as it turns out, there was another shoe to drop, but it didn't involve Hellebuyck. Where this all leaves Florida, if the reports are true that they are not willing to give up Anton Lundell, I see no pathway at all to a deal for Hellebuyck with Florida. I think Drager's reported that he believes if there is a list that Hellebuyck's is much more extensive than what Brady Tkachuk and maybe Dylan Larkin.
Let's get to that because this is the thing. if we take him at face value for what he had to say at the end of the season, it's all about winning and he wants to go to a cup contender. And I don't think that there's a huge number of those teams. If there's more to it and he just wants to get to an American market, then there should be plenty more.
Right.
Like the old Vegas, the Jets would never trade Hellebuyck to Minnesota, so we can forget about them. The Vegas, Florida, maybe Tampa, Carolina list. I mean, those teams.
That's about it.
Carolina is one of those teams that could do the trade in a heartbeat because they have great young players on contracts without no moves, but there's not a lot of them. So
yeah,
my question is, and why we kind of get to why is this trade request or being open to it being thrown out? Because if it is just about winning, well, cross off the Sharks. Frank brought up Utah, which is kind of an interesting one. I'm not sure whether that was. I didn't think of them right off the bat, but they'd be. But the other two interesting ones are Buffalo and Detroit. Now, Buffalo had a great season last year. They hadn't been in the playoff for a decade and a half. Are they a cup contender? That's probably a stretch right now. And the Wings are the furthest from that. They haven't sniffed the playoffs in a decade, and their captain wants out. Although Detroit's very interesting because you do wonder if they were able to get Hellebuyck in a trade and he was fine with that. Does that maybe make Dylan Larkin reconsider what he's happening and give them a better chance of winning and smooth that over? But outside of Florida, if we're talking about a deal happening, who do you think are realistic suitors for it? And then we can get into the possibility of it happening this week or this being something that drags on a very long time. Potentially,
Detroit is interesting. Detroit is interesting, of course, because it's Hellebuyck's hometown. We know that's a very special place to him. But to your point about winning, I mean, look at the landscape now of that Atlantic division. Huss the Detroit Red Wings. There's 8 teams in the division. Would many people have them ranked higher than number 8 right now in that division? With you've got your Montreals and your Buffaloes and a Toronto team that looks like they're reloading and they're about to get the first overall pick. You've obviously got Tampa, you've got Florida and what they're doing, you've got Boston. Detroit does not look at all like a contender. In fact, I think you'd make the argument the Jets are probably closer to contending than the Red Wings, but things could change. I guess what you wonder about with say Detroit and Hellebuyck, like let's say that were to come to fruition, does it end there? Do they then start calling around about Kyle Connor, another local boy, and all of a sudden they need some help up front because Dylan Larkin does walk? Like there's a lot of interesting scenarios. One that we haven't mentioned, Huss, when it comes to a contender is the Edmonton Oilers in terms of a goaltender. But like, would Connor Hellebuyck approve? Like, that's just going from one sort of mid-sized Canadian market to another. Now,
there's no that we're getting back. Every single player's on a no trade on the Oilers. Yeah. Like, there's just no path for a deal there. Like, they're not trading Draisaitl. So, I mean, to me, that one's basically a non-starter, even if he was a good. By the way, I wanted to mention this segment is brought to you by your Prairie Toyota dealers and the Toyota Tacoma with the standard I-Force engine, boasting an impressive towing capacity of up to 6,400 pounds. In fact, it's the most powerful Tacoma ever. So whether you're hauling gear to the rink or heading to an away game, you can tackle it with ease. And when it's time to load up, the available power liftgate makes loading your gear in and out a cinch. Experience power, capability, and convenience with the Toyota Tacoma. Visit shoptoyota.ca or your local Prairie Toyota dealer during red tag days. If you look at Detroit, Mike, Detroit is a team that does have, they've had a lot of high picks as of late. They've got a heck of a solid young blue line. You would kill to get Moritz Seider, and he doesn't have trade protection for the next 2 years. They're not trading him.
Lucas Raymond.
You look at, Sandin Pelika, who's just 21, right shot D. He's on an ELC. Simon Edvinson's an RFA. He's 23. And then you look amongst their younger players, Lucas Raymond, again, winger.
Yeah.
He's signed till 2032. He could be dealt. They don't have, Andrew Kopp was playing second line center for a while this year. So I do think they have some picks. Oh no, they actually traded their first round pick this year in the Falk deal. So they didn't even have that. So again, like the mix, and like I have a feeling the Jets, if they can get their price, would like to get this done sooner as opposed to later to allow them to move on to everything else. But as I said all last week, if you're expecting this to happen right away, you might be disappointed because Chevy's not making this trade unless it works for the Winnipeg Jets. And when you add in no moves and all this stuff, I have a hard time thinking that unless Anton Lundell is part of a package and maybe Mikula, their blue line, this is not getting done with the Panthers. And at that point, then you have to go to a bunch of other options that seem a lot less likely to be concluded.
They do, by the way, the Red Wings do have a young center in Marco Kasper. Now he's 2 years. He's 2 years into his. He was the 8th overall pick in 2022. Really took a big step back last year, though. He had 19 goals as a rookie, 37 points. Only had 9 goals in 81 games last year. So is he a 2C? Certainly he's a guy that had the pedigree and was being touted as maybe a future 1C even, but maybe his development hasn't gone as planned. So yeah, Buffalo's a team that really interests me for sure. Clearly, we also know there's already a connection there between the Jets and the Sabres in terms of getting deals done.
I can't believe Chevy's number isn't blocked by Buffalo. Like going back to the Kane trade, now Stanley and Shen, like
Yarmo will be like, new phone, who dis? When Chevy tries to call. Yeah, it's Florida to me made so much sense. The Maurice connection, obviously the Tkachuks now, or the Tkachuk connection that's now the Tkachuks connection. I just don't see. You mentioned Lundell and Mikula. I think they're about the only two guys like without trade protection. And I think they're each making about $5 million, and they'd have to do all kinds of things to make the money work if Lundell really is a non-starter, I don't see the Jets have nothing to talk to Florida about anymore. They might have if the 9th overall pick was in play, and or 25, but those are gone now. They just went to Ottawa. So which brings up another. Does Ottawa, they've got all these picks now, but they're not necessarily in a team, and clearly goaltending has been a question mark in Ottawa. But again, if you're Connor Hellebuyck, is that a team you'd even consider? And if you're going to consider Ottawa, why aren't you just staying in Winnipeg?
Zero chance. So, one of those picks, I think, is far more likely to come to Winnipeg in a Cole Perfetti deal than it isn't anything to do with.
Yeah. I think, and I said this last week, I think when we chatted, Huss, I know there's no rush. The Jets are not going to be forced to make a rash decision. That being said, I still truly believe if you are trading Connor Hellebuyck, to me, it has to get done, or it really should get done before free agency or even before the draft, because you need clarity. You need clarity for a whole bunch of reasons. Not only if you're the Jets and you're trying to recruit free agents and map out your team, but also if you're a team that's potentially acquiring Hellebuyck. We know based on history, Huss, that by the afternoon of July 2nd, there's going to be most teams that are kind of set, and they go into cottage mode for the next month and a half. Not a ton of big moves happen. So now, this is the week. These next 4 days leading up to the draft. And then if it doesn't happen at the draft, because maybe it doesn't involve draft picks, if the Jets are truly looking to get players back, I can't see how this drags beyond July 1. And, it'll be interesting, Huss. I believe Kevin Cheveldayoff is the plan last I heard, is the plan is he's going to speak with us probably on Thursday this week. And there was a time when we thought he might speak a week or so before the draft, and that's not happening now. There's going to be a lot of questions, draft related and non-draft related. What will his answers be? And will some of the questions answer themselves by the time he steps in front of a microphone on Thursday? We shall see. But clearly there's some seismic activity happening in the hockey world. We saw that yesterday. And I do get the feeling that will not be the last big deal that, maybe leaves us picking our jaws up off the floor.
Yeah, no doubt. Just the big question as to whether Winnipeg will be involved and whether, their franchise player, their franchise goaltender will be in the mix. And to your point, if you can get that done to your liking, then you can move on. You can do what you need to do on free agency to try to, get a couple other options in net to go along with the young guys here, and move forward. But there is a very big chance, in my opinion, that this is something that, becomes a bit of a cloud. And this is part of the reason why they tried to keep it as quiet, because I think they knew that it wasn't going to be easy to thread the needle of a Hellebuyck trade if it didn't just go to Florida. And now this is complicated as obviously yesterday with the Sens trade. And as you said, we'll be on the watch, but I'm not sure what we're going to be watching. Although, the more and more you hear other people talk about it, it does seem like maybe there are some landing spots we haven't really considered. I mean, Utah's the other one that I hadn't really thought of. I mean, they're not going to trade Logan Cooley, but you've got a young team that still has their first round pick this year. They've got a lot of young guys in the system, probably a lot of players that are ready to sort of graduate. Now, who that number 2C is, Nick Schmaltz just signed, so he's locked in. Dylan Guenther is a winger, but 23 years old. He's signed till 2023. That could be attractive. Clayton Keller's not going anywhere. He's got a no move. So I don't know. We're going to spend all the time on Puckpedia just looking at rosters and looking to see who's got the anchor beside their name.
One other one just quickly that I go back to, Huss, I think you mentioned them, and maybe they're not, winning immediately, but they're building towards something, and that is San Jose. And I say San Jose because they have all kinds of draft capital and prospects. And they do have a young center in a Michael Misa that, you wonder if you're the Jets. I think if you're the Sharks, you're trying to balance your team out a little bit, right? And they have the second overall pick. And there's a lot of debate about what they're going to do with that pick because, while Stenberg is kind of the consensus number 2, they don't necessarily need another dynamic forward. I guess you can never have enough. But certainly, there's the blue line that they're looking to round up. And if I know they have a young goalie in Askarov who's, touted as the goalie of the future. But if they're trying to accelerate their future and, give Gavin McKenna, sorry, not Gavin McKenna, I'm thinking of this year's draft, give Macklin Celebrini and Will Smith and all those other players on the Sharks right now, like, a message that let's go win it now. I can't think of a better way to do that than go get the world's best goaltender. So San Jose is interesting to me. And I don't know, would they be on Connor Hellebuyck's list? It's US market. I think the fishing's still pretty good in California. And they have some pretty darn good players and a pretty bright future. And if it's about winning, I think you could make the sell there. So San Jose is a team that I would, I'd keep an eye on just to see what they're up to. I'm sure they're going to get a lot of calls about that number 2 pick, especially if they're not absolutely married to Stenberg, that they'd be willing to trade down. What could that potentially look like? We shall see.
Misa's interesting. They've also got William Eklund, who's 23. That's left wing center. He's got 3 years left at 5'6", but is an RFA at the end of that as a draft.
A lot of control there. Yeah,
don't really have much in the blue line, and then they've got another pick as well in the draft from the Buffalo Sabres. Well,
Right.
will give us lots to chew on for the next few days heading into. By the way, this will be the last time we have you on unless something crazy happens before the weekend. Assuming the Jets make that pick at 8, whose name do you think gets called?
Yeah, I mean, I go back and forth, and to me, Bjork would be the one that makes the most sense. I'm less and less convinced with every passing day that he's going to be available.
Yeah.
And so to me, Daxon Rudolph is a guy that, I've read a lot about him. I've watched a lot about, and I think he checks off a ton of boxes. He just reading and kind of hearing about him, like there's a lot that he kind of screams Winnipeg Jet. And, I think there's a lot of belief that he's probably still there at 8, and he's in that group of really good defensemen that could become like a franchise type defenseman. And I think that he makes a lot of sense, assuming, Bjork to me would be the guy if he's available. I think he's probably gone. So to me, I look at Rudolph as probably the next best choice if he's still there.
Mike, have a great one, and go enjoy your time with your pups.
You betcha. Will do. Thanks.
Right on. There is Mike McIntyre. We, again, if you missed it, noon to 2 is Wednesday's show. We're doing it an hour earlier live. We're going to do it from Boston Pizza. Taylor, more than welcome to come and join us. We'll have some great World Cup vibes for Canada, Switzerland right after the show. We're giving away, I stuck around for the game on Friday. Had some great prizes when Canada was scoring, many from Royal Sports, which is, of course, your World Cup headquarters. Get on down to Royal Sports, 750 Pembina Highway. If you want to get your Canada jersey or your scarf or your hat just in time for the big game on Wednesday, and hopefully for a nice run through the knockout round. They've got so much World Cup stuff there from nations from around the world. Check it out in person. And while you're there, check out the soccer, softball, baseball, tennis, running, casual shoes, best selection in town, and tons of bikes. Actually, I might go pick up a bike this afternoon from Royal. I'm going to pop in afterwards and get out on the road. Royal Sports, check them out online as well at Royal Sports Winnipeg on Instagram for the latest merchandise drops and sale information. As we mentioned, and there's a pinned comment in the chat, Goldeyes game, not a week tomorrow, Tuesday, June 30th is the WST patio party night. Hope you can all join us. Should be a great time. Just go to winnipegsportstalk.com to get your tickets, and we'll see you for what should be an awesome night heading into Canada Day next Tuesday, June 30th at the ballpark. Tickets again, winnipegsportstalk.com. Looking forward to checking up with our friends at the Hunt Fish Manitoba later on this week. But when you're thinking about summer, now that it is officially here, if you're planning your next adventure, make sure to start with Travel Manitoba. Whether you're searching for road trip inspiration, hidden gems, or the latest festivals and events, everything you need is waiting for you at travelmanitoba.com. If you're looking for ideas on the go, follow along on social media at Travel Manitoba for real-time inspiration, local tips, and can't-miss experiences from across the province. And if you do prefer a personal touch, stop by the Visitor Information Center at the Forks in Winnipeg. They will go to the Post tonight, 7:30 at Assiniboia Downs. We will get our picks a little bit later on, but big week at ASD with live racing tonight, tomorrow, and Wednesday. Make sure to get out, but let's get the fellas back in here. Michael Remus returns, as does Connor Hrabchak to the program. Don't forget, Bomber fans, it was a quiet week for the Bombers, but that did not prevent Schnitzy and Connor from going live this morning with the latest on the Winnipeg Blue Bomber Bomber Report on WST, heading into the game on Thursday at Princess Auto Stadium. Connor, what's going on? How are you?
Well, Huss, I'm doing well. Had a great weekend. A lot of CFL football. Saturday triple header. I'm a big fan of those. Can just kind of park it on the couch all day and watch some CFL football. And we got some awesome games too.
Cool.
And then Yesterday, obviously, the Tkachuk news was crazy. We did Sunday Live. We did our Bombers report this morning. So busy weekend, Father's Day as well. Hope everyone had a great Father's Day yesterday. And looking forward to this week of NHL news. I think the Tkachuk stuff is just the start. I think it's going to be a crazy week. Draft on Friday. I can't wait. It's going to be a ton of fun.
Let me hit you with this. I know we were kicking this around in the group chat, and it's hard to really answer this, not knowing what Hellebuyck's list is, and what his motivation for leaving is. It just that he wants to get to the States? Is it he wants to be on a true, obvious Stanley Cup contender? But if it's not Florida, who, Connor? What are the teams that sort of intrigue you when it comes to a potential deal?
Cover your ears, but Vegas? I don't know.
They give the Jets. That's the thing. It's got to work both ways.
Well, you do see Drager floating out, let the Jets want a 2C and a defenseman. If they have NHL players on their team, they don't have prospects and futures, but maybe that's not what the Jets are looking for, is futures. They don't have young NHL players, but they have Tomas Hertl, who's a forward that the Winnipeg Jets might want, or something along those lines. He wouldn't be the headliner of the package, I don't think, but maybe Vegas. I still think Buffalo is a fit in that sense, where they went to Game 7 of the second round this past year. They have a lot of young talent. Hellebuyck, I don't know if he would waive to go to Buffalo, but he might see them as an up-and-coming team, and they certainly have the young assets to do it. They just traded for the 20th pick in the draft as well when they moved Kesselring to San Jose. They moved up 7 spots. That could be a pick that could be coming to the Winnipeg Jets in a deal like that, along with, maybe a Ryan McLeod from the Buffalo Sabres, or Hellenius, this young player that was amazing in the A and in the playoffs for the Sabres last year. So I do think there are some teams. I still am not entirely out on the Detroit thing. I do think going home would be appealing to Connor Hellebuyck, and it goes to your point of, okay, does he want to go to a cup contender, or does he just want to go to an American market? Because a cup contender, that's not Detroit. I don't think he would waive to go there with the expectation of, winning a Stanley Cup sort of thing. But I don't know, San Jose and Utah, ones I didn't really think of. I saw you play the Saravalli clip earlier. They're young and up-and-coming teams, and Utah certainly has the young assets to get a deal done with the Winnipeg Jets. Do either of those teams feel that they are just a goaltender away from being competitive in the West? Utah, maybe. I mean, they took Vegas to 6 games. They made the playoffs last year. They have an aggressive owner. We know that Ryan Smith wants to win now with this Utah Mammoth team, and they're a young up-and-coming team, so maybe that's an option. But I don't know. I don't know. I basically spent all of Sunday Live saying, yeah, guys, this may or may not happen. And I don't really know. I don't know how to answer Hellebuyck stuff. I'm sorry.
No, I mean, listen, I was kind of banging that drum last week. As much as it's fun to talk about, it ain't imminent until it's done. And Reem, I mean, we've got, there's a lot of attractive possibilities, but just people mention a team like Vegas. I mean, Hertl's got a modified no trade. I mean, there's not a lot of guys looking to move any of those markets to come to Winnipeg, even at the best of times, like last year, where the team had such a great season. This year, it's tough. The more I think about Utah, I am intrigued because of just, how many talented young players they have, but also the guys they have in the system. And TJ Ginla is another player that, projects to be a very, very good top 6 player that's got some bite to his game. I think he'd be a really attractive asset. But again, if you're trading the best goaltender in the world, you're going to be, you want to solve that problem. And again, the center position, Clayton Keller's not going anywhere. They're not trading Logan Cooley. Schmaltz has a no move. There's not really that center that just jumps in. Although they could just sign Stenny back on a,
of course.
Stenny back on a thing. Reem, what about you? During this conversation today, does any team seem more likely than maybe you had given it a chance before, knowing that we don't know what his list is?
Utah was interesting that Frank mentioned. They're not afraid to make moves. We saw them make the Sergachev trade, the Paterka trade. They have some prospects. That's interesting. I do wonder if Hellebuyck would want to go west or stay east. As we've mentioned, he's close to Michigan. Like Detroit, they're not close to winning, and he wants to win. So, like, are you going to be waiving for a team that, isn't in the conversation of the Stanley Cup? So, like, if you want to go to San Jose, maybe they're a couple of years away. I feel like Carolina could be a fit, but they've shown that they can do it with a budget goalie. And, Hellebuyck's, he's 33. Again, he's coming off a season with an injury. I know he's got 5 years left. His numbers this past year, not great, I think, and some of that is on the Jets roster. I just don't know how many teams are looking for this type of player right now. We thought Florida was certainly it, but are they? I think they seem to be less of an option now after the Tkachuk trade. So I don't know if it's there, guys. Like, I feel like we're not as close to getting it done. Like, who's going to offer other pieces? Edmonton would love to have a goalie, but they don't have anyone to trade. So unless like Darnell Nurse for Hellebuyck, that's not getting it done.
Your mic, come on.
So, well, I'm just saying.
Yeah.
It's like the Jets. Hey, the Jets need a big defenseman. Isn't that what they're looking for? So I just don't know if anyone's got the. I think Buffalo is probably my next best fit, but as I said earlier, a lot of players not really waiving their no trade clause to go to Buffalo. Sorry, Buffalo.
Maybe it's different now. We will we'll see. We're going to get the test of just how badly certain players, i.e. 37, really want to leave based on what the options are to shovel day off. Because as I say, if it's a tight list and it doesn't make sense for the Jets, he's going to be fishing on Lake Winnipeg this winter.
Well, what about New Jersey? I think that's one we really haven't mentioned. They were rumored to be in before. Simon Nemec's name is out there. They do have a first-round pick this year. I don't know, do you get Markstrom back? Oh, wait, he's got a 20-team no-trade list. They also have Jake Allen, who's got a no-trade clause. But they're a team, it could be interesting. Do you bring back, do you take Brendan Dillon's contract for a year or something? I don't know. Or you look at one of their forwards. Who's the one that was always mentioned? Mercer? So
Austin Mercer.
He's an RFA after this season, but he's 24, so he's a UFA after. So I don't know if that would be a fit, but I'm just throwing out names here to consider.
It's tough to find. I mean, the two C's there, Jack Hughes and Nico Hischier, it looks like they're in the process of extending Nico Hischier. He's going into the final year of his deal. The only other guys listed as centers. Cody Glass, Winnipeg native, former high pick. He's got 1 year left on his deal, and then he's a UFA. And then you mentioned Dawson Mercer, who's an RFA with arbitration next year. But again, I'm not sure that does. Former number 2 overall pick, Simon Nemec, is a player that I'm sure would be attractive. He's an RFA right now, looking for a new deal. And then, you mentioned, maybe you get Brendan Dillon back or one of the other players to make the money work. But that one is a little bit more difficult. And where I guess they've got a top, where are they picking this year? Probably around 12, 13, something like that, I'd imagine. I don't have it in front of me, but they were, a pick in the teens would be, I guess, somewhat attractive. I don't know. Anyways, we'll get to the latest tomorrow and continue on this over the course of the last bit. Connor, you mentioned this. I know Hammer and I are going to dive into this extensively tomorrow on CFL 110, but that was quite the Saturday. Shout out to me for taking the Elks. I didn't have the Stones to take them to win outright, but I did have them to cover, which they did. It would have been a perfect week if BC didn't get lit up by Hamilton on Friday night. But another 2 overtime games. It was a pretty awesome day. But how about that Argo offense through 2 games?
Yeah, no kidding. I said it after their first game, and I think this is how the Toronto Argonauts are going to look this year, is a high-powered offense with not much defensive resistance when it comes to opposing teams and how they can move the ball. In week 1, we saw Montreal put up, 37 points on Toronto. Toronto was with them offensively. Chad Kelly was there, but the defense just couldn't really hang. This past week, the Ottawa Red Blacks, I mean, you can count on them being the worst team in the CFL this year, I think. Who could have seen that coming when they named Jake Maier the starting quarterback? What a shock that is. But the Hamilton Tiger Cats beating the BC Lions. BC's 0-2, and I think a 41-27 score actually flatters the Lions. Like, that game was not close. Bo Levi Mitchell on that Hamilton offense were absolutely rolling. And I'll get to the Edmonton game in just a moment, but Saskatchewan, Calgary, what a game that was. Overtime, 40-37. Trevor Harris versus VA. So much fun to watch. And then the Edmonton Elks, like I was saying on this morning's Bombers report, no longer a free space on the bingo card coming to Princess Auto Stadium this week, Huss, where you look at the schedule before the year for the Blue and Gold, coming off a bye week, Edmonton Elks at home. Oh yeah, that's absolutely going to be a win. Well, now Edmonton is 2-0. They just beat the Montreal Alouettes and handed Davis Alexander his first ever loss. So this is going to be a big one on Thursday. We talked about the West being a gauntlet this year, and if Edmonton is a part of that, it becomes even more of a gauntlet. So great start to the year for the Elks. Love to see them having some success early in a season. And what a week. Week 3 of the CFL did not disappoint at all.
Yeah, Reem, I know you were in transit. Did you catch much of it or just follow me? Did you follow my shocking victory in fantasy? I officially will not go 0-15. I got to win.
I got to say, I have been keeping an eye on the James Butler versus Justin Rankin head-to-head this season, as you famously meant to pick Rankin, but the CFL website gave you Butler, and you said, you know what, I'm just going to stick with it. Justin Rankin keeps on ripping off these massive runs. I got the alert that he did it again, and all I could think was, Huss is not going to be happy about this 47-yard long, 179 yards on 18 carries and 2 touchdowns. These are like Priest Holmes, LaDainian Tomlinson.
That's exactly what it reminds me of right now. The
style numbers. But there you are, Rum Hutters. You're 1-2 in our league. I'm at 2-1, and I missed out at Hatcher was not playing and still beat up on Liss. So I'm keeping track. Really impressive. Shout out to Edmonton. Taking down Montreal was at Davis Alexander's first loss as a starter. And I can't help but think what would happen to Edmonton last season if they just would have played Cody Fajardo from the start of the year instead of messing around with Trey Ford. And I was a Fajardo hater, but then I watched with my own eyes what he did to the Bombers with the Grey Cup on the line. So he'll forever be a winner. He's a good player. I was a hater. I said he couldn't get it done, couldn't get it done. And then, he stole the Grey Cup from the Bombers. So congratulations to them on that win.
Yeah. Oh, geez, we got a big match. The Rum Hutters versus Connor this week.
Yeah, you'll realize that my record says 1-2, but I'm actually 2-1 because I beat Hammer in week 2. But the CFL's 10 out of 10 perfect fantasy app that famously drafted James Butler for you instead of Justin Rankin gave me a loss when I actually beat Hammer. So I'm 1-2, but I beat Hammer, so I should be 2-1.
Wait, it says
great app,
says you
guys.
lost.
It says I lost. Add up the numbers from his team. It doesn't add up to 130. I can tell you that.
Let me try this.
Come on.
Unless Hammer had a lineup and I saw it wrong. The app glitched and he set a lineup, but it wasn't really there. I'm interested to see. Remus, you can add this up. Mine adds up to 115 last I checked, but you can take a look at his.
Adds up. I added up all the fantasy points here in Jeff's roster. Adds up to 106. I don't know why it says 130.
Correct. So I won, but it gave me a loss.
Hey, you know what? Is he still president of the Football Reporters of Canada? This could be some sort of scam inside job that he's manipulating the fantasy state from the inside. We may have to, you know what? We'll press him on that tomorrow on CFL 110. we'll get going on it.
I threw it in the group chat, famously to no response from Jeff Hamilton. I guess his phone wasn't really working that day, but that's fine. I guess that's fine.
He was busy. Well, anyways, fun week in the Canadian Football League. We will have CFL 110 tomorrow. You guys hang tight. Let's take a look at the World Cup games and everything else going on in the lines of what's happening tonight. We already have Messi on the board, and I believe an Argentina victory. But got a shout out. I'm wearing this nice Breezy Bend hat. Played Breezy on the weekend. Oh my God, it is in such perfect condition. Got to give a shout out to the groundskeeping crew there. I've never seen the greens as perfect as they are right now. And I know we've had a lot of rain. We've missed some rounds. But, man, is the course looking great. Huge thanks to Breezy. And, hey, if you are thinking about long-term home at Winnipeg's top private courses, check out breezybend.ca or give our pal Corey Johnson a call at 895-7206. And congratulations to Wyndham Clark. Nobody's favorite golfer, Wyndham Clark, hanging on to avoid disaster and winning his second U.S. Open championship by 1 stroke over Sam Burns. Also seeing some great stuff coming out of the lake at Aikens Lake Wilderness Lodge right now on all their social channels. If you're thinking about an amazing fly-in fishing trip where you can be on the water in less than 2 hours from the city of Winnipeg, Aikens Lake is the spot. And as amazing as the world-class fishing is the hospitality from the Aikens team and the Turan family that really puts it over the top. Check them out online, aikenslake.com or at Aikens Lake on all the social channels for availability for the remainder of the 2026 fishing season. Hey, maybe you dads, hopefully I got a couple beers in you yesterday. Let's give a big cheers to our friends at Winnipeg's favorite local brewery, Little Brown Jug.
You train day in and day out, learning new techniques, approaching new concepts, and living out the thrill of achieving your goals. Building a craft beer is no different. While you spend your hours on the ice, we spend ours here, brewing our trademark beer. Again, again, and again. Here's to pushing the status quo and challenging ourselves to build something memorable. 1919 by Little Brown Jug.
All right, we're going to get to the Coolbet lines, but a reminder, the WST Summer Poker Series begins tomorrow night, 8 p.m., Tuesday, 8 p.m., our first of 4 tourneys. The dates for those, July the 8th, Wednesday, July the 8th, after tomorrow, Wednesday, July the 8th, Tuesday, July 21st, and Wednesday, August 5th. And those will run as normal tournaments with $100 bounties on my head, Hammer, and Michael Remus. But in addition, if you are one of the top 2 qualifiers, the top 2 finishers at any of those 4 tourneys, you'll get a ticket into the final where we will send somebody to the Coolbet Open in Estonia. Big money tourney, flights, hotel, entry. There'll be some really cool events in and around it. So I hope you'll all join us. Tell your friends if they're into poker. Unbelievable opportunity. Tomorrow night, 8 p.m., our first tourney, and the top 2 qualify for the Coolbet Open final. I should give some congratulations. Speaking of this, let me just grab the old group chat with Pat and Jake. Our Izzy 999991 was the winner of the CFL Pick'em on the week. And now the leader is only 65 points. So even if you have missed the first 3 weeks, I would encourage you to still join and make picks on a weekly basis. There's a $50 top prize every week. But if you finish at the top of the table at the end of the year, you'll be going to the Grey Cup, courtesy of Coolbet. Flights, hotel, tickets to the game, and all that. So Izzy is our weekly leader, and the games are open. You can pick them now. So if you get in under Coolbet League is where you'll do it. You'll see it. And speaking of Coolbet League, congratulations go to a WSTer, Mike Cochran. Mike Cochran, WPG, won the $500 first prize in the U.S. Open Pick'em contest. Pakadidi, $250 for second prize. And look who got third, $150, none other than Michael Remus. Remo, you got your picks in for all 4 rounds. I told you you'd be in the mix if you did.
Yeah, you told me last major that I think you won, and I did put my head-to-head scores on. I hit a couple, correct ones with the correct result in the head-to-head. So, very fun and free way to keep track of. Well, CFL, this pick'em is incredible because there's no website out there that currently offers CFL pick'em, and then this golf one, very fun, free to enter, and can't wait to get my prize and Coolbet merch here. Now that I've won.
Bet. Kurt Covers was 4th, and Sonny the Greek was 5th. There were 5 prizes. I finished 6th. Literally one stroke off of a perfect call for the Wyndham Clark Scotty Scheffler round, which would have given me 7 extra points, which would have bounced you from 3rd and got me into it. So, anyways, it was a great weekend for me at Coolbet. Trust me on that. No complaints. Seeing the board very well for the World Cup. And that is where we are at this afternoon. Kylian Mbappe taking to the field right now with the French to practice or to warm up. France is a huge favorite. Minus 909 today. I had them earlier at -2. They're now -3. It is plus 150. France to win both halves, if you want to bet it that way, is minus 133. The France to win to nil is probably still like minus 200. Oh, it's minus 191. So, yeah, I mean, I think if you're going to go with a bet for France, you might want to go win both halves just to score in both, obviously, to be ahead in both halves, minus 133. Or you can just get into the goal scorers. And Mbappe, minus 212, plus 157 on 2 goals for Mbappe, plus 450 for a hat trick is also up right now. France, a huge favorite over the Iraqis. The game I'm really looking forward to tonight is the Vikings. Norway rowing their way onto the pitch to take on Senegal. Norway plus 135, Senegal plus 228, and a draw plus 245. One that I do like, both teams to score and over 2.5 goals in the Norway-Senegal game is another one that you might want to get to. And, of course, we hit the Erling Haaland goal prop last time. Erling is even money to score, plus 385 for 2 goals in this game. And he is the offensive juggernaut for Norway. 13-1 for the hat trick for Haaland as well. And then the final game tonight, Jordan, Algeria. Algeria is a minus 179 favorite. I think if you're looking for a play on that one at a better number, Algeria to win to nil, plus 141. Both teams to score in that one is even money. Tomorrow's action, England, Ghana. That'll be fun. 3:00 game. Portugal and Uzbekistan gets things going tonight. As far as the Blue Jays go, Jays got rained out yesterday against the Cubs. Crazy comeback by the Jays on Saturday. They were down 5 or 6-0 after the 6th inning. Ended up putting 8 over the plate in the last 3 to beat the Cubs. But tonight, who do we've got? We've got Dylan Cease versus Hunter Brown. Jays at home, minus 132. Astros, plus 108. And just while we're here, guys, I'm just going to pull up the NHL and just see if we've got anything else added to the draft page right now. Oh, we do. All right, Remo, you might want to pull this up. We should talk about this. So, 3rd overall pick, Caleb Malhotra is minus 125. Ivor Stenberg plus 250. Stenberg's minus 140 to be the 2nd overall pick. Chase Reed at plus 120. I don't see Carroll's there, but I have seen some people mocking Carroll's to the Sharks. We'll see if we can get him on. Vigo Bjork, 60-1 to be 3rd, 25-1 to be 4th, 6-1 to be the 5th. He's minus 115, though, to be 6th overall pick, which is saying that they expect the Calgary Flames will select him. There is a whole bunch. We got to be a top 5 pick, to be a top 10 pick, to be a first-round pick. And then we start getting into the over-under on Vigo Bjork's draft position is 6.5. So if you're hoping he's going to be there at 8, the books tell us that he's probably going to go 6 or 7. Albert Smith's draft position is also 6.5. What do they have for Daxon Rudolph? 9.5. And the under is to 345. So they don't think he'll get past the 9th pick, which of course is right now Ottawa. But yes, if you've been waiting for, we got a number of OHL players to be drafted in the first round, WHL players, Q, NCAA, Americans, Canadians, all of that. It's all up in Coolbet right now if you want to dial in for the draft on the weekend. Okay, guys, I've got to say, before we finish up, and we got to get to our picks. Obviously, there's been a lot of talk about Canadian players and mostly American players on Canadian teams leaving. I think I've figured out a groundbreaking idea to fix the NHL in the draft, at least for the Canadian teams. How does this sound? We no longer do just one big NHL entry draft. We do a Canadian draft where the 7 Canadian teams get to pick the top Canadian prospects. The American teams do a draft of the top American prospects, and there'll be a limited number of picks in each round or in each draft. Anyone that wasn't drafted in the first few rounds of the Canadian for Canadian teams, American for American teams, goes into the big pot, and then they are joined by all of the international players for the international draft. So Canadian teams get to draft all the top Canadians. Americans can have their players. We fix the problem for the Canadian teams drafting these American guys. Those guys can get drafted by the U.S. teams. Better Canadian talent that's produced by this country stays in Canada, and then we see what happens with the internationals. Did I fix the plight of Canadian hockey in one mind-bending idea?
I mean, it's mind-bending for sure. I'm still trying to figure out some of the logistics. Yeah. I have an idea too. If these guys want to play for a winner, why don't you just build a winner? If you're a Canadian team.
They didn't say. They said they want to play in the States.
No, Hellebuyck wants to play for a winner. He wants to win a Stanley Cup.
You believe that after everything we've heard from everyone else?
I guess Larkin too wants out. He wants to play for a winner. Build a winner. That's my solution. I don't know how Remus feels about this mind-bending draft.
The winners
idea.
are still in Canada. Like, you don't really think that this is just about like everything that he said is face value at the end of the season? Well, then why are we talking about Buffalo or Detroit or any of these other teams?
Buffalo's on the up. Detroit, is unrealistic. I agree. Vegas, Florida, good teams.
Yeah.
Good team.
Yeah. Great teams, weather, no media attention.
This is where we're headed, Huss. Everyone's trade list is Vegas and Florida.
Draft idea. That's why I just solved the NHL.
Well, there you go. Maybe you've convinced me. Wow.
Remus,
okay.
What about you? Is that the most asinine thing you've ever heard, or does it have merit?
I don't know what you do to fix the problem, but I do agree with Connor. I think the management for a lot of the Canadian teams hasn't helped themselves. And, for Connor Hellebuyck, I do take it at face value. I think there's a number of factors why he would, why he would want a change of scenery. I think the disaster of the season, and part of that was, his own
not
play.
Recognizing the Presidential Medal of Freedom?
Well,
spoken by Frank?
Yeah, I have to listen. I kind of want to listen to that part again, but it did sound like that he had information that it was unbelievable that the Presidential Medal. Could you imagine if they would have shown the video of him getting it placed on him on the Jumbotron during the game? What a scene that would have been. But I think bottom line, he wants to win. And if the Jets had a good season and, had a chance in the near future as a Stanley Cup contender, the way they're currently constructed, he would be fine with that. But when you have thing upon thing, it's easy to nitpick and find details, that you're unhappy, why you're unhappy and why you want to leave. So, I mean, Hustler, I want to pat you in the back and say, great idea. This would revolutionize the league. I like your out of the box thinking. I don't know if it's that realistic, but yeah, I think it's a great idea. And I got to say, I see a lot of stuff, too, about this is why we haven't had a Stanley Cup winner in Canada in 33 years. I mean, look how many times they've gone to the Cup, how many times those teams have had Game 7s. Their luck, certainly a big factor in that. But I do think lately you have had some teams. There's been some mismanagement. You are seeing a lot of teams go through rebuilding phases like Calgary, Vancouver. Edmonton spent 10 years in the cellar. So it'll come eventually, but certainly a bit tough here for some of these Canadian teams. I mean, Toronto had so many good teams, couldn't get over the hump in the playoffs, and the Jets, were this close as well. So the time will come for Canada, but I don't think, Canadian teams are totally doomed here.
Mind-bending idea aside, Huss, I do think you're going to see, if it's not already happening, more Canadian teams draft Canadians in the actual NHL draft,
Or just not Americans.
Just not American. Yeah, or not Americans. Yeah, because that's already become more of a thing here in Winnipeg after the whole Rutger fiasco as well. So, yeah. I think that'll become a growing trend.
I mean, this isn't new. You see this with the Raptors. They've tried to draft some European players. Well, you got to know where you are, and maybe more and more it has to, factor in your decision making. Hey, is this a guy who wants to sign here long term? I know Marat speculated. Did they try to trade up for a guy like Carson Carrolls, who's from the area, who would want to switch?
I was hoping Carrolls would just say to all the teams, do not draft me. I won't report. I only want to go to Winnipeg. I want to be close to the
Could
farm.
you imagine?
That would be
amazing.
great.
That'd be amazing. He's such a beast.
He gets drafted 5 overall by the Rangers and just refuses to report and demands a trade.
Trade me to Winnipeg.
That would be like the Haley's Comet of the National Hockey League. But I mean, to your point before, guys just want to win. Well, why didn't Brock Nelson accept a trade last year to the number 1 team in the league?
Yeah, true.
I mean, that's just, you've got it all. And put it this way, the other thing is why, Winnipeg has been a very competitive team for the last decade. Why would Winnipeg be number 1 on everyone's no trade list? It's not like they've been the worst team in the league. Far from it. So,
for sure.
There's just a reality of this that unfortunately really sucks if you're in if you're in our position, or the worst position to be is shovel day offs, trying to make chicken salad out of chicken bleat more often than not. Is Chase Reed an American?
Yeah, I believe so.
So he would be in the U.S. draft. Malhotra, Malhotra and McKenna, they'd be in the Canadian draft. Carrolls, Verhoff, Daxon Rudolph, they would all be there. Vigo, Stenberg, Albert Smits, they have to wait till our international draft.
Right.
Wouldn't be good for the U.S. teams, and there's way more of them. That draft would not be a big win for the Canadian team. Somehow I don't think that's getting past the NHL Board of Governors.
What do you think Gary Bettman would say?
Hey, if we're producing our Canadian players, they should go to Canadian teams. And as you've grown the game with all these great players from the U.S. NDTP, your U.S. players can have those, and then we'll all equally share the international players. It seems rewards Canada for creating great players, so they just don't go and win cups for the United States and have us without one in 33 years.
Yeah. I don't know if that's getting by Bettman, Huss. Sorry, hate to say it.
Gary, I don't think Gary's rubber stamping that one.
No.
Maybe we have to wait for the visionary Bill Daly to take over when he's done. Remo, let's hit. You got your picks done. You've had a big comeback lately. I think we're basically right back to where we started. Although we've had a good start to the season, overall being right around the even mark.
I was very slow to start, but as you know, the horses race, you get more and more data, which helps you with your selection. So I think I was a bit thrown off early on. I wasn't getting a feel for the horses, Huss. But now that I do, I'm on a bit of a hotter streak. So I'm coming up. It's coming up pretty well for me. So
all right, I got mine ready. So we do have live racing tonight at Assiniboia Downs. Normally it's Tuesday and Wednesday, but we've got it tonight. And then the next Monday is July 13th. I will definitely be there that night. It's also the night they're doing the Wiener Dog races. I'm particularly excited for that. I'm not sure whether we're going to be able to bet on them. Probably not, but at least they'll be entertaining. Can you imagine, though, if in-house you could go and bet on the Wiener races? That would be incredible. Okay, here's what I have for tonight. Remo, race number 2.
Okay.
$3. There was no way I couldn't go with High Miler. We both won on High Miler last week. So even though he's not even in the program selections or the smart picks, High Miler is on my card. $3 to win. Race number 3, I'm putting $3 on number 7 to win. Flying Tex. In race number 4, we've got a triactor box. We're going with number 3, By Request, number 5, Broken Promises, and number 6, Short Speech. In race number 5, just a toonie on number 1 to win, Canadian Lights. And then race number 6, we're going tri-box. 2, Cash Mule, 7, American Wit, and number 9, Swing Time. 2, 7, 9 for my triactor. There's my $20 today. What do you got?
Okay, I'm also on 279 in race 6. So I'll ride
Really?
with yes, I have that.
Let's get it.
I have that here as well. Oh, I didn't even put these up. Sorry. On race 7, I'm on the very nice 6-9 exacta box. That's 6-9 or 9-6, whichever way it goes there.
Oh yeah, Nickety Split.
Yeah, Nickety Split. There you go. Honorable mention. I didn't bet on this horse, but Easy Tree Atesh, I think. Easy Tree Atesh, horse race 1, a horse 2.
Maybe Murad's gotten into the horse racing game.
Yeah, I thought it was named after Murad, but I'm not. I'm not sure. And then, but I am on race 4. I just have a straight exacta, not a box. 6-3 Short Speech and By Request. I think you had those in your trifecta. Box, but I'm not doing a box. I'm just going straight 6-3. So let's cross our fingers. I'm right there. And then the other one was race 5. I did have a trifecta box. 2, 6, 10, Cash Flow, Red Dirt Valley or Red Dirt Alley, and Living in the Fast Lane. And hopefully I will be after that one hits.
Good stuff. Generic WST Jets fan. Who'd we have to add to move up from 8 to the Rangers 5? Great question. We will get into that, value of those picks. And I mean, there's a group of 9 or 10 players. So you're going to get a good one. Just, different people value different players more. And obviously there's that somewhat of a draft chart as to what general managers feel it should cost to move up to that pick. But man, it would be cool to get Carroll's in and hopefully never have to deal with Rutger McGroarty or what's happening with our Vezina Trophy winning goaltender, who has given us many years and did sign an extension and has 5 years left on his deal, which will definitely be a factor when trading him. Connor, tomorrow morning should be fun. Big week of CFL to talk about. And of course, we have an in coming up. Very important game for the Bombers to try to avoid going to 1-2 and letting the Elks run away with the West.
Yeah, no kidding. So I'm looking forward to tomorrow's CFL 110. Bombers, Elks, again, no longer a free space on the bingo card, are the Edmonton Elks, 2-0 to start the season. The Riders take on the Argos this week. Stamps, Lions, too early for a loser leaves town. I mean, they're both 0-2. Someone's going to 0-3 in that game as the Lions host on Saturday against Calgary. And then Montreal takes on Ottawa. That game might get ugly very quickly. Jake Mayer, it's not going well for Ottawa right now. They lost by 20 at home to the Toronto Argonauts, who are also, undecided on how good they'll be this year. So another fascinating week in the CFL coming up. Hopefully we get a couple more of these banger games that are going to OT, and the offenses, Huss. Like I said this morning on Bombers Report, the only optimistic or the incredibly optimistic view of the Bombers' defensive struggles is that you probably can't name a single good defense in the CFL so far through 3 weeks. Like every team is just getting a ton of points put up on them. So we'll see what happens this week in week 4.
Well, I mean, the fact that the over was the biggest over we've seen in forever on Friday was lapped.
Flew past
59. I mean, hey, listen, it's great, but I think overs right now are like 9-1 on the season so far. So if you want to make some money, blindly bet overs in the CFL, and you should be good. Speaking of CFL, picks are open for the Week 4 contest over at Coolbet. And speaking of Coolbet, poker tomorrow, 8 p.m. Hopefully we will see you there. It should be a heck of a lot of fun. Fellas, great weekend. Good show today. And guys, you're looking forward to getting it back at BP. Early show on Wednesday before the big match against the Swiss.
Oh, yeah. I am fired up. I didn't know if that one was for Remo or for me. Sorry. But we did go to BP Taylor, and that was a ton of fun last week. I unfortunately didn't stick around for the game, but this game being a 2 makes it a lot more feasible. And we'll do the show. We'll be there. The game will start. So I am fired up and hoping Canada can win or draw. Draw is what we want as well. So that'll be fun. And BC Place is going to be rocking. I know that for sure.
Yeah, it certainly will. But for those of you that are out there that are with us live on YouTube, if you can blow off work in the afternoon, come on down, take advantage of that great $15 lunch special at BP. I know they've got some beer specials on. They'll be giving away prizes, but the sound is phenomenal at that PP. I'm sure it is at most of them. They got some brand new screens. That's going to be the place to be. So you're all invited to BP Taylor. 12 to 2 will be doing the show. Make sure you get there by 2 for the game, though, which is, of course, the main event. And make sure to grab your tickets for the Goldeye game a week tomorrow, June 30th. Going to be a great way to go into Canada Day with the big one over at the ballpark for the WST patio party. That's going to do it for us today. Thanks to Mike and AJ Jakubec, Connor and Remus. We'll be live tomorrow morning, 10 a.m. with CFL 110. And then another big show tomorrow. Remo, who's cooking? Who's coming up tomorrow on the program?
Just putting that together right now, but we'll have some draft preview, off-season talk. And Darren Bombing will join us later in the show. Bombers, interesting schedule coming off the bye week, Huss. Close practice today and an off day tomorrow. So interesting one from the Bombers. We'll have plenty of Bombers.
And then a walkthrough.
Yes, then walkthrough.
They had 2 outdoor open practices at Lions Field this weekend. Getting out in the community. I'm not sure there's something was going on at the although, maybe they have been working on the stadium because one of our listeners, an insider, was involved in I guess they cut the holes for the pegs for the new spot for the goalposts right after last game. So I don't know how long that takes or whatever it is, but that may have been what the case is. Regardless, we'll talk Bombers tomorrow with Darren Bombing. We'll have the latest from the NHL scene when it comes to trades and rumors and whatnot. And we'll also get ready for the draft first round on Friday, tomorrow on the program. And get ready for Canada and Swiss at the World Cup as well. That is going to do it for us. Thanks again to the guests, to all of you for being here. And a huge thank to all of our sponsors that make this show happen each and every day. Enjoy your Monday evening and join us tomorrow, 10 a.m. live on YouTube for CFL 110. And 1 o'clock, we fire it up for another edition of WST Daily. Have a great one, everyone.
Oh, my God. Oh! Shut it down. Let's go home.
Thanks for tuning in to Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily. Make sure to subscribe on YouTube and your favorite podcast feed at winnipegsportstalk.com.